anything, high school down there and talk to them on that too, so.
Here. Okay, welcome everyone. Welcome to tonight's regular school board meeting. Our first order of business is to hold a public hearing, so I will call to order the public hearing. This is the second of 2 required public hearings. Are there any comments, oral or written, concerning the proposed 2026-2027 school budget? Denise, have we received any comments?
No.
Written ahead of the meeting? Okay, and I'm looking around the room and no one's catching my eye. So any comments about our school budget? Okay, hearing none, I'll call the first public meeting adjourned. Second on our agenda is our second public hearing. I will officially call to order the public hearing for the Decorah High School and Perry Lee Elementary roof drawings and specifications. Are there any comments regarding Perry Lee roof? High school roof drawings and specifications? And Denise, have we received any written comments?
No.
And I'm hearing none in person, so I will call the second public hearing adjourned. And our third public hearing is to call to order the public hearing for amending the calendar for the 2025-2026 school year. Are there any comments regarding the 2025-2026 school year? Denise, have we received any written comments ahead of the meeting?
I did get a supportive text. I won't read the context, but a parent said that their child was very happy and was prepared to buy me my favorite beverage, which I think would be illegal.
Well, don't put that in the notes, but enthusiasm.
Enthusiasm for.
Okay, great. Any other comments? Okay, hearing none, I'll call the public hearing adjourned. Next, I'll call to order our regular school board meeting and taking roll call. I noticed that all board directors are here in person. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for sharing your time tonight. Do I have a volunteer to read the mission and vision statement? Yeah, great. Thanks, Lily.
At Decorah Community School District, we embrace student learning and well-being as our fundamental purpose. We will, in partnership with our students, families, and community, make the world a better place. The mission of the Decorah Community School District is learning, thriving, and creating our legacy. The vision of the Decorah Community School District is as Decorah Community School District will be a collaborative, innovative learning center organization, empowering students to embrace their personal strengths and create their future.
Thank you. Under old business, we have one item, which is the second reading of our board policy 704.4, gifts, grants, and bequests. This draft was reviewed last month by the board, and I'd like to open it up with the board to see if you've had any thoughts or reflections since our first reading. The purpose of reviewing this gift policy, we've seen an increase in philanthropic gifts to the school district, which is a beautiful thing. We don't want to slow that down, but we do want a firm process to be ready to receive those gifts and provide support to our admin team. And just to repeat, during my time on the board, and I talked with our past board president, Ron Pettis, who's led on the board and served for 16 years. The board has not been in practice of reviewing financial gifts coming to the school district. So this is new work that we're looking to do. And we're looking for the next best step in being ready to do that. So I'll turn it over to the board.
So just to clarify that, for the last 16 years, there's been no board policy on gifts, is that correct?
No, that's not what I'm saying. There was a board policy in place. The board was not in the practice of formally reviewing gifts.
But there has been a policy in place.
There has been a policy in place, so this is a proposed revision of that board policy.
I think
This covers a lot of what we talked about at the last meeting, but in a much more condensed than the last one. It's good, clarifies.
Yeah, I agree. It's makes it pretty straightforward, for the smaller things that are just keep rolling that won't require under $10,000 or that meets the other thing. Tim has the power of getting those done, and we meet once a month, so we should be able to approve the other stuff monthly. So.
Right, so currently, Dr. Cronin has the financial authority just in general of spending $25,000. Anything above $25,000 comes to the board. So this threshold of $10,000 through philanthropic gifts is less than that. I think I like the idea of having a financial threshold because it allows some things to pass through. So things aren't having to wait. Our regular school board meetings are held once a month, and a month can be a long time if you have a purchase that needs to be made quickly, or supplies or uniforms or something that's needed. So it's finding that right. I think it's finding that right balance.
I like the part in the middle. I think that the line that says the superintendent shall provide periodic reports, I think that's the important part. So figuring out what that means, I think, is the next step beyond what's written on paper.
And one idea that I had, I don't know if it makes sense, and I'd like your feedback on this, Tim. I know that you do a great job of providing weekly email updates to the board. I appreciate those. I know it takes a lot of work, and there's a lot of work happening every week to report. So that would be one way. Another way would be in our consent agenda. That's something that we look at every month, every week, watch financials come through that way. So, but we are, formally approving the consent agenda. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud, but I'm wondering what the best way is to communicate.
Yeah, it occurred to me a lot of the capital things would be or has been placed on the Pepple Save list. So that would be one area, especially, because sometimes we put stuff on there and we don't have a number to it, but like, so the board knows, oh, this might be coming, I remiss to think of a good idea, like new lights for the softball field. We'd like to do that. We're not going to do that in the near future, but we'd like to do that. So if we had someone come up and say, well, I'd like to donate the money for new lights to softball field, we get it on the capital projects, then it's at least on the radar. It can be one of those future items. It doesn't have to be one that the board's approved. So, but certainly the weekly notes or the monthly superintendent report at the board meeting could be another good way to say, hey, this donation came in. We did, met the criteria, so we accept it. Uniforms will be purchased for soccer or whatever. So,
how often do we get gifts that are from an individual or for companies that are not given to us through the athletic boosters or the performing arts boosters or let's see, I think it's CSD.
I'd say, I defer, Mr. Riley can answer this way better than Tim can. I'd say a couple of times a year. We just have a community that's really good about that. I could say coming from smaller districts, like we wouldn't have had this kind of issue because maybe once every 10 years we get going like a Decorah, and they just did a track. So that's what everybody put their energies to. But we'll have I could think of we had money given to a weight room, we've had money given to, we have specific people who after a coach dies, maybe they want to donate to that program, but I don't know, would it be, I'm not calling you Mr. Riley, is it fair to say a couple times a year you're getting a call about a substantial, it probably seems normal to you, it's not normal to me, but
Sometimes a year there's either centered around something that somebody specific that's targeted or the money that gets to be the one who uses it's probably towards specific.
Is there a way that we could get a report from these supportive organizations, the boosters? that could just be on our agenda or in the week, our weekly agenda, and just have a monthly or every 2 months or something report from them on what their projects are. Because most of our projects are coming through the
Yeah.
boosters, and I assume I assume the people on the boosters are working with our companies or our teachers, our new teachers or whatever, to come up with the gift and get the input from the people who are gonna use the gift so that they know that it's going to be appropriate type piano, et cetera, appropriate size. I assume that all happens. I'm not sure where to look here, but
Yeah, process, like any requests that we make the booster fund, coaches, directors, staff members work through me, so we can have long-term plans, so let's say just our uniform rotations. We have a set uniform rotation that rotates every 4 to 5 years, for those uniforms, so it's a plan. That's all we can take is continuing.
I don't know what the rotation is for our presentations, like, pre-K presenting there, but we could throw boosters and then that rotation and once a year or whatever, we have a few minutes. I think my goal with it would be to just know how much work those groups are doing for us for one thing, so we're aware. But then I think there could be feedback and planning on both ends.
Well, and if nothing else, I would like to be informed because when people ask me questions and I'm going to Facebook to check the announcements, it would be, I just want to be ready to answer questions as much as possible, not to slow down processes, but to be informed to help support that. So whatever that cadence says, I like the idea of being the superintendent report. I think monthly is whatever's either monthly or quarterly, whatever is achievable, not to add more work, but to find that balance would be good.
And I think what the two of you are talking about is making sure we're in alignment on the gifts coming in, so that we're aware of what's coming in or what people are planning, but also making sure it's matching the priorities that we might have as a district, so.
And as, just to repeat what Tim had mentioned too, just that capital projects list is, I think, not to create lists on lists on lists, but the capital projects list, I hope can be a dashboard or a touch base that we can keep an eye on, the admin team can keep an eye on, and Riley can keep an eye on to know what we've talked about. And because we do talk about that list, we talk about projects on the horizon.
that list is basically our PEPAL spending. That doesn't necessarily have gifts. I mean, these two separate lists for me. For the most part, unless we have a donation that goes towards half of the top acoustical files.
Yeah, and again, yeah, I wouldn't say all donations end up on the capital projects list, but a lot of them would, because they're capital, looking, or they could be moving forward. We could just use that for anytime there's a capital improvement, we make sure it's on that list. But yeah, that's not gonna catch up.
So I'm also thinking about the $10,000 limit, and I understand what you're saying, that we don't want, I mean, we already have 3 hour meetings sometimes, we don't need to have long meetings for, $200 gifts. But, I'm trying to think of like, what might be a gift that would be really something that the board, as a kind of the elected officials, I guess I'm from the community and representing the school district. What might be something that would be something that we would want to be the final buck stops here kind of people. And I'm thinking, what if somebody wanted to donate a Bluetooth speaker for the tennis courts? And it's one that had substantial volume, you could really crank it, lots of bass, less than $10,000. High school kids would love it. Neighborhood people, maybe not so much.
It's a great example.
So, it's not gonna be $10,000. They go to, they just go buy it and donate it, and here it is, I bought it for you. I'm thinking about situations like that. How does that fit into?
Well, later in it is named that anything that is constructed or naming opportunities, and obviously a policy is not going to be able to get every example, everything. I wonder what language is best to get as much as we can.
Yes, but I don't know, also with the second reading, if we change it now, if we have to do a third reading or not, but a line of something that's like superintendent has the authority to bring any to the board that he feels like,
Right.
might need more.
And
discussion.
that could be, yeah, and not to blur the lines too much, but by having the monthly list, if a board member asks, like, I would like to talk, it just would open the door to conversation.
And it would also protect employees of the district who they come to us and donating this. Sometimes you don't want to be the bad guy, you know, sometimes having a group make decisions is a lot easier than in the one employee in the district who.
Yeah, and our role of being the school board is to provide support for us.
So I like that wording maybe to add in here, that after this question. Superintendent. We could add, get step with us.
So we can just type that in and approve it as a second reading. You can always have a third, you can approve it, you can have a third reading, that's, you know, you can see how it goes, you can adjust it. You know, you can always bring board policies back, we don't
Right.
tend to do that very often, but if you have a board policy and you're like, oh, now that I see what's being donated, you know, I wanna like tweak it like that, it can certainly come back, it's not like this is your only chance in the next 5 years to look at this policy. With regards to Carol's point, I don't know, that's such a unique one. It's not,
Allowed to think about that.
it's not construction, it's not a naming right. There's probably not an ongoing cost, you know, maybe electricity. So does it impose material conditions affecting curriculum, programming, or student access or district operations? That might be like, for me to know that, oh yeah, that's gonna do that. But then it's covered by, I think the bullet point that to add is the superintendent may at his or her discretion bring items to the board that he feels are he or she feels is important.
The last full paragraph is the one that's a little tricky. And I think it does get into the point, Carol, you raised with your Bluetooth speaker. So we're saying that all gifts that come in become the property of the district. They're subject to our control and direction. Okay, so if they're blasting the speaker too loud, we can say, all right, or no more speaker,
Yeah.
like it's got a whatever. It's the lines after that where it gets tricky and so we're saying they're all subject to the board. However, the next line says accepted gifts shall be administered in accordance with any donor imposed conditions approved by the board. So we're starting to get into a little bit of a contradiction between each other, and acceptance. This is the one paragraph where I'm struggling a little bit with. We might have some conflicting language in there where we both want the same thing, but perhaps we're gonna run into each other along the way.
Would it cover it to say accepted gifts shall be administered in accordance with any donor imposed conditions approved by the board and or superintendent?
And so- and that's where I think it gets into the tricky part with, you know, the Bluetooth speaker. I think that's an excellent example. It hits all the criteria that, do we need to see it? No, but
They could put donor imposed conditions on that speaker. I agree with you that the donor imposed conditions,
And maybe-
I think we should just take that part out. I
Right.
think that when gifts are given, they are become our property and
The school district will decide.
our responsibility. Yeah.
now, not to play devil's advocate on it all, the flip side of that would be a bequest gift where you're saying, I want to give this scholarship to the most outstanding, whatever. That would be a case where it'd be like, yes, we should follow those rules, but does it need to be written
But I-
into policy?
Yeah, I
That's
think
right.
that the school foundation is set up to do that.
Mhm.
And the purpose of this gift policy, I mean, The word bequest is included in the title of this policy. And we need to be prepared to accept gifts that we can accept. Because even if we can't be at the whim or personal direction of every single bequest, if it doesn't align with our values or so. I don't know if we need to be as broad as only accepting unrestricted bequests. But it's something that we need to consider, or to put that decision making on the board.
I think it's good to remove the donor limits and conditions. I don't think we want to go fully unrestricted, even though I would love that. For the practicality of operating district. I do think that developing this policy and increasing the relationship between the board and the boosters and all their forms is going to alleviate most of these issues. Or prevent any of these types of issues from coming up, because the alignment, like you said, Aaron, is gonna get there, and we're all gonna be working towards the same goals. And that's the hope.
And our role as a governance board is not only to set policy that we're going to follow today, but for future boards as well. So we need to think beyond our personal thing.
One of the things that we talked about when we read it at the first meeting was, if there's fundraising involved, especially with the community that's outside of the boosters, should that gift be, should that, they know that that gift is going to be accepted, should that be voted on before there's fundraising? And before that possible gift might be, go in front of a government entity for a variance, etc. Because once all of that is done, it's pretty hard to not accept the gift.
I think that's the goal of our administration and to
What if it's
start
not,
those conversations.
what if it's not part of, what if this happens and it's not, the fundraising happens before it becomes president?
I guess I just hope that everybody is talking to each other and knowing that we have all of these platforms to support the school. And so you're gonna have to talk to someone at some point, but I think that the first level of contact is probably the admin of the boosters. So I don't want them to come to the board right away. So I think that we need to put trust in our admin and our policy to be aligned with our ultimate goal. Because we don't want everybody to do that use of their time or opportunity.
I agree with that. Again, in thinking about, yeah, I agree with that. I completely trust our team. Now that we've had this conversation, I also trust that we're going to be working together in a new way to have more conversation about gifts coming into the district. So I'm interested to know, do we feel comfortable in agreeing upon updated language tonight? Or would it be best to continue to work with language and have a third reading next month?
Did everybody see what I typed in as more point about the superintendent determines that an item should be reviewed by the board of directors regardless of aforementioned, so even if it's less than $10,000 kind of thing, I don't know, I just made that sentence up. And then I did put a line through the second line of that one paragraph that was problematic, but that's if we're really comfortable with this, and if we want to wordsmith it or have more time, the board has that option as well.
I think you could probably get rid of the regardless of aforementioned. So if you determine that it should come before us, I don't know that it's necessary to have the last couple words in there.
Right? You just got to highlight.
I do. It was me. Just trying to make it easy to find.
Yeah, well, you could just hit the delete button. Move period if it.
Yeah, that's fine.
Otherwise, I think it does read pretty smoothly with that addition.
I was just trying to make sure that we understood that last bullet point that even if it doesn't meet any of the aforementioned
Yep.
items, that we're still gonna have it, but I get what you're saying. Sometimes we can just put too many words in there.
What if the superintendent determines if the item should be reviewed by the board of directors?
Yeah,
I think we did.
kind of like a checklist.
Goes with the top line. Prior to acceptance, the board shall review and approve any gift, grant, or request that the superintendent determines should be reviewed by the board of directors.
So I don't know that we want to move it all the way up to that
I
top.
think
one.
she's just making
Because
the language
each
work.
one of those goes along with that top line, and
Yeah.
that's how it goes with that permission. That's my English teacher.
Yes, thank you.
I get what you're saying.
I make a motion to approve this as amended.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. One comment that I'm going to make is that Carol, you just mentioned the grammatical correction. That has not yet been made, is that true?
I deleted it. I just did it.
She did it.
Okay, it's done. Thank you. Does the board have any?
That was the part I was like, I see changes being.
It's live investigating. Fine. Great.
Let's please take care of business tonight.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments to be made before moving forward to a vote?
Feel okay moving forward tonight.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Great, thank you all for that discussion. That's good. Next, for item number 5, approval of the agenda.
I need to make a recommendation to amend, when we talk about the easements, we need to add in, rescheduling of the public hearing from the 20th to the 27th. We have, Connor's got me more accurate public hearing notice in the paper. So we're gonna get that in the paper this Thursday, and then what? We're gonna have our public hearing on the 27th. City council is gonna have a special meeting that they're gonna approve it on the 27th. Blake said that 1 week would be okay, and so we're just following steps and making sure we get things accurate.
And we confirm that city council is allowing a vote session.
I did, for, they already had a work session scheduled, so, there was talk about whether they could do an MOU, but they would prefer that we have our public hearing on the easement on like noon of the 27th, which we were already gonna have it on the 20th, so this just gives us the 10 days that needs to be published in the paper. So, we can amend that with M, discussion of easements with city for new elementary school, and I think the wording I would say, and rescheduling of public hearings from the 20th to the 27th.
And thank you for all of your work, and Cindy also. This has been a lot of hours and a lot of hard work, and we appreciate getting the details.
Make a motion to approve the agenda with the adjustment to discussion item N.
I'll second.
Hearing a motion and a second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next, for item number 6, approval of consent items. Check out the minutes, bills, and personnel.
We both, Aaron and I are on.
I was gonna say, I need to abstain off of the activities.
Yep, so my recommendation for that, and I welcome other input as well. We can approve or consider approving consent items and removing those 2 items.
I don't
and
believe we
filling
have a
those
line number.
separately.
No, they're not numbered, but
You can name
We're both in
the,
the activity fund bills, right? We just vote on.
or vote on activity bills separately.
yeah, you have a quorum that
Yeah.
way.
Mhm.
And the other thing moving forward that we can do is, if they're numbered, like Brad could say, I'll approve the consent items, everything but number 42 and the activity fund bills. And so then you have four voters, and then they just turn around and Brad, Brad makes to take Aaron's out if it's number 42, and then Aaron makes the motion to approve Brad's thing, but for convenience today is we want to approve,
Oh, that's right.
approve with the activity fund bill not there.
I think if we just do it, consent items minus activity. fund.
Yeah, that's the easiest way to do it.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve our consent items minus the activity fund bills.
Okay, hearing a motion, and that was seconded by Lily. Any further discussion or questions to have?
Don't see numbers. No, I don't have that. No, I found it. Never mind. My only conversation would be the posting of a new position for a 3-year-old special ed preschool teacher. I think that's a wonderful option. We'll certainly support those youngest, most neediest learners at a pivotal point, and so I love that it's there. I just want to.
Thanks for sharing your enthusiasm. Bit of. Yeah. Good.
The master bill is larger than the last, do we have conditions or just? That larger?
I don't have I can get a little bit, sometimes that's the billing cycle, sometimes it's stuff I can't tell you that I can think of. Big emergency that we had, but we can get that for.
Just wanted to hear that.
But that's good news.
The oldest brother of the state is still functioning. Well, I just got a dirty look, so.
Don't be saying stuff like that.
Okay, so we do, any other comments? We have a motion and a second to approve our consent items. Minus activity fund bills. Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And next, I'll accept a motion to approve our activity fund bills.
So, 1 second.
Okay, can we have a motion and a second? Any further questions? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. And rescind. Okay. Moving on. Item number 7 is open forum and communication from the public. Is there anyone that would like to make a statement tonight to the board from the public?
I believe we had some people sign up, so. We didn't have to?
No? Okay.
Oh, wait, no. That's just. Ranju, did you want to talk? This,
Can I talk later?
So I'll clarify, so the board meeting is a board meeting in the public, but not with the public. So if you have something to say, now is the time to say it.
Okay.
And you would have 3 minutes, and I'll set a timer and I'll read a little script.
Yeah.
But the board will be listening to you, and we're not gonna be asking you questions back and forth. But you can say what you would like to say. Yeah, you would say what you would like to say, and we will listen.
Okay.
And then later, when we talk about agenda items, we will talk amongst ourselves, and if the board has questions for someone specifically in the audience. We just can't have back and forth later on in the board meeting. Does that make sense?
I understand, yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna read a little script about the open forum, and then I will let you know when we're ready to listen. Okay, the open forum is a time set aside for the board to hear public comments. Comments are not limited to items or topics on the agenda, but are limited to matters within the board's authority and are not to extend more than 3 minutes in length. As per Iowa code, the board cannot discuss matters not posted on the agenda. Also, please remember that comments are being made in a public forum. Any comments that are considered to be inflammatory or libelous may be subject to legal action. So I'm just going to set a timer on my phone, and I will give you a gentle nudge when you are at 3 minutes if you make it that far. Okay, you may begin.
My name is Ron Jew, 85 years old. I've been a lifetime resident of Winnebago County, with the exception of 2 years in the United States Army. My concerns are, there's a lot of talk in the community concerning the flag pole and the flag. I don't know if it's all true, whether it's, some of it is, some of it probably isn't. I believe that the school board, if they have an opportunity, should put up the biggest flag available. I want people in the state of Iowa to say that Decorah represents our government. The flag, I've heard people say that there are members of the board, whether it's true or not, I don't know. But think that putting the flag up is political. Well, there's two ways of looking at it. Yeah, it is political because it speaks for the United States of America. It represents the Democrats, Republicans, everybody. It's hard for me to comprehend that there would even be a question about putting up a flag. The cost is immaterial. It's not even part of the issue. Maybe these stories aren't true, maybe they are. But I really cannot understand why there would even be a question about putting up the nicest, biggest flag we can get. If somebody, whether in this board or any other board, doesn't think that it's proper to put up an American flag, a big one, that everybody can see, we can all be proud of. Just not right. Why we have people on our board, we're getting our community. We have people that won't pledge allegiance to the American flag in public. Other people that supposedly don't want to support the American flag. And they're getting, it's just crazy. I really hope that you people will agree to put up the biggest, best flag in the state of Iowa. So when people come here, everybody can see it. As far as saying some small one is fine, that's ridiculous. Why not put up the biggest, nicest flag you can get? Whether somebody's donating or what, that's not the issue. The issue is I think there shouldn't even be a question as to whether a flag like that should not be put up. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Any other communication from the public? We'll move on. We're on number 8, which is our financial report. This is typically last on our agenda. But it's moved up to me. Does the board have any questions? We have Christy here in person, and we have Joan online. Thank you both for joining tonight.
As it pertains to the budget that the board will have later in the agenda to approve, one of the things that I mentioned in the pre-board meetings was the management levy, which then becomes management fund. We did take the opportunity to pre-levy a little bit for that so that we would have the ability to, once the debt service levy for the new school fully kicks in, which will be in this year's budget, that we wouldn't need quite as much for management. So that's why if you look at those balances, it's like, oh, last year and a half, it's been creeping up a little bit. Certainly not a management fund that would rival some of the districts that have large management funds that we feel like, and then there was a management budget share that we have a good year. So we're gonna have draw back our management levy this year, and then next year we'll have to also put back into it. But with that, it's just, I know I talked to some folks at pre-board meetings about what the strategy was there, and just wanted to make that clear.
And it's a financial tool that we leverage for a stable tax rate and stability in our school district as well. Joan or Christie, do you have any other comments that you'd like to share with the board regarding our financial report?
Joan, you're muted, but I think you said no.
I said no, thank you.
I saw Christie and she politely said no as well. Okay. Any other questions from the board?
I don't have any questions. As a community member trying to read, I'll define it the cash balance report. I think it's important to recognize and remember that the general fund is what's used to pay teacher salaries. It's what's used to pay for the operation of the district. So we can't use those funds for anything and everything. It has a very specific purpose, similar to how the management fund can't be used to pay for the operation of the district where we're paying teacher salaries. So as we're moving ahead, one of the things that we've talked about as a board that's come up from the Public School Strong Group is how we're funding our schools. And if you look year over year, the Decorah Community School District has less funds than we did last year, the year before that. That's a state decision outside our purview. But it makes it harder to operate a district fully when you aren't being funded fully. And so that's the only comment I'll make on that. We're being as fiscally responsible as possible. We just spent an hour plus talking about that and thinking ahead to next year. We spent a lot of time thinking about what do our next 5 years look like? How do we ensure that we're spending the right amount of money? We're ensuring that we're keeping things in line. And so the difficult part is, as we approach the end of the school year, we're preparing for the next. We'd love to pay our teachers more. We'd love to compensate them even more than what they are. I personally think that teachers are one of the least well-paid positions anywhere. We don't have infinite resources to do it. And that's the hardest part. One of the hardest parts I think about being a board member is knowing that something should be different, but having no tool to do it. And so that's the thing I would recommend if you're a person looking at the budgets and you're looking line by line. That's the one thing I'd recommend that you know and listen to and kind of look at. And that's the thing that I'd ask you to nudge your legislators about.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you, Erin. And no action needs to be taken on our financial report. It's going to move on to my next item, which is a presentation from Shanna Whitten-Double. And she is joining us from West Side Early Childhood and FEC.
Yeah, I'm gonna find it right here.
Tonight, Shanna.
Yeah, I do want to share Amanda Mackey is here too. She is an FEC member as well as team principal. So really excited to have her on board. So we have 2 quick presentations. Going quick, yeah. So the FEC stands for Decorah Educator Community Organization. So it's very similar to a PTO, only our t-shirts say cooler. So we changed the name to be more inclusive. When I first took over as president of this organization, I actually had people come up at a para come up like, my Joel, as the said teacher, and I didn't even ask him, somebody who cares about kids and wants to support our schools can be the FEC.
Oh, I don't know.
So the mission, the purpose of the FEC is to unite family members, educators in the community to support our children's school programs and provide enrichment when the budget falls short. And as Aaron kind of alluded to, there's less money than there has been previously. And so this committee is more important than ever in making sure that we can still do the things that our kids need, whether it be author visits, going to theater productions at their college, purchasing materials for our classrooms. All of those different things are things that the FEC funds. Every year at the beginning of the year, we meet with our committee and establish goals. This year, our committee really wanted to focus on raising funds for our elementary schools and then really just enhancing family engagement as well as positive childhood experiences or bringing the joy to our. Oops.
Is that working now?
There, yeah, I think so. Okay. So what does that look like? The big things we do, just adding family engagement events. We do have a minimum of 4 per year. This year we had the most epic tailgate ever. I don't know if any of you were there, but it was It was so we had an amazing tailgate, and then they went over to the football game where all the elementary students had the opportunity to sing before the game. Super fun. We do a dance party with the Luther College football team, and we do a giant pool party, ice cream social, lots of things. Typically, our events bring in between 300 to 400 plus people, so it's really exciting to see all of our families coming together and engaging our schools in a really fun way that will hopefully boost engagement when we have to have some of those further conversations at a later date. We also produce the yearbooks. I'm not sure people are aware, but the older grades, they have staff that do that. Our yearbook is 100% volunteer created. It's hard. It's hard. We do educator appreciation. So when we think about peer appreciation, teacher appreciation, different things like that, parent-teacher conferences, providing meals, that's what our FEC does just to support those staff. There have been different times in the last few years. I know John Klein, the year of the bees and the heat and all the things that we just needed to pick me up, like right away, people turn to the FEC, like, how can we support our staff during this really, really hard time? And they were there and here for us. So the other big thing I like to note is that through our fundraisers, we typically raise $35,000 to $45,000 annually for elementary schools. And in early childhood and elementary, we look at pictures. So this is where that money goes. So it's things like the Pumpkin Literacy Project, where all kids have access to get a pumpkin. We do a big pumpkin patch outside of the school. They can choose a favorite book and then decorate it. We provide Viking Pride t-shirts for all incoming kindergartners and third graders, so every kid can represent their Viking Pride regardless of finances. Really excited to do a sign-on day this year, so get excited for really cool stuff to come. Fun events like that's our Friendsgiving, kids enjoying pizza together. Field trips, that's Lacrosse Children's Museum. We provide money for materials every single year for our classrooms, as well as doing funding requests for individual things that our teachers reach out for. Really cool things like shark tanks and bug museums, all of those things, whether it be coming to our schools or coming to our family events, just to bring some of the things further away to all the kids who are in our community who may not have access. And as I said, just materials. These were some of the blocks that we were able to purchase for our students, just again, increasing that engagement for our kids. So I think it's really important to shout out to the amazing people. We have some people on our school board who might be engaged. Brad Darling might have volunteered our entire dance party, which was pretty epic as well. So huge kudos to those. And I'm really excited just hearing the conversation earlier tonight about just the increased engagement with the board. That is really exciting. And as the FEC, and I'm sure the boosters and everyone just appreciate the support and collaboration. The other thing I want to note, though, is just how awesome the committee is. So we have committee members who are part of committees, but then we have a lot that just volunteer their time, that just come beyond their hours of school and continue to show up for these events, sometimes working 12, 13-hour days to rock dance parties and raise money for our kids, which is awesome. We also have members whose kids have left elementary school and are still with us 3 years later. So it's a really cool committee. And with that, I just want to celebrate those people. And also, if you're looking for an awesome committee to join, you're welcome to come check us out and learn more about it, because it really is an awesome organization. The other thing I want to touch base really quick about that is this year we created a new organization, kind of an extension of the FEC called FEC Cares. This came about just with some different things going on in the district and wanting to make sure that we were able to get funds to students in need when they need them. So FEC Cares is an extension of the Decorah FEC. Totally separate fundraising, a separate account entirely. And well, the other one is more elementary school based. This one supports preschool through 12th grade Decorah students. The biggest thing about this is it's more individualized. So the other one is all about school engagement, where FEC Cares really is there to meet students during the hardest times. So when unexpected challenges arise, FEC Cares steps in to help ensure that our students are safe, supported, and can still fully engage in. Because if you've ever had trauma in your life, you know that if you're going through a really hard time, it's hard to show up and learn. And so knowing that someone is there to care and can even just give a little financial boost can make all the difference. So we started this winter. We've already raised approximately $10,000. We had an epic middle school dance party just now, Albert's right. It was amazing. It was so fun. And kids made great choices. It was awesome. So we raised a lot of money there, and just then in the newspaper, and had a lot of private donations as well. So we're very grateful to our community. And again, these funds raised, we have criteria that admin, guidance counselors, at-risk coordinators, as well as the committee approved. So most of the things are just kind of go through that funnel, but we have some other things that come up and then we'll vote on it as a committee, but different things that we will fund. Short-term emergency housing, if someone's house catches on fire, just helping them have a place to go if they can't afford it. helping during medical diagnoses, maybe a cancer diagnosis, or major car accident. Support following the death of a student or an immediate caregiver, which unfortunately we've had, and we want to be there for those families. Winter gear, we have a lot of kids in our community who don't have access to boots and snow clothes. So making sure they have that. We've done clothing drive the last couple of years where we partner with local agencies. We do a school supply store at the beginning of every school year, and so kids can actually come and shop for free to get all the school supplies they need. We'll still be able to do it with dignity and choice. And then funding for just, I have kids reach out because I can't do basketball because I don't have shoes. I have people reach out because they're young parents and maybe a high school who's had a baby, and so support with diapers and formula and just some of those unexpected things. But biggest thing is just making sure when our kids need support, they know they're cared about, and we can help give that little financial boost to get them where they need to go. Should I keep going or keep going?
Does the board have questions about FPC or FPC cares?
You're amazing. I mean, it's wonderful programs, amazing. and I, some of the people like probably FTCs, like FTCs, that's why it wasn't big. But and I love also all of the photos that you put on Facebook, and that you really do a great job of getting the word out through social media. So
Yeah, bravo.
all right, yay, preschool. So we'll do a 3-year-old program. That'll be amazing. So thanks for the support from the board. But just a quick overview on Decorah preschool programming and the Westside Early Childhood Center. So a couple of the big things I think are important to know when you think about preschool programming in Decorah is that whether students attend Westside or other collaborative partners, one of our biggest responsibility is ensuring faith. So making sure that all of our preschoolers across Decorah have education to a free and appropriate education. So that means that they have special education needs, if they're at some of our different centers, we're still responsible for that, making sure it happens, making sure they can go through the eligibility process, making sure they get their specially designed instruction. That's still on us, and making sure that they all get that. The other big thing that ties all of us together kind of as a collaborative preschool program is that I would call the preschool program. And that brings together our partners. So Westside, St. Ben, Sunflower, and Rossbury, Kinder House, and Misty. Please know we also have a great Head Start program. That is separate funding, but we still collaborate with them. So things to know about Iowa Quality Preschool Programming is kind of like up to us as a district to make sure all of these assurances are met across all of our collaborative partners. So when you think about the position of the preschool principal, it's also ensuring these things are happening across all the partners. So this funding provides access. That was the whole goal, so that all kids in the state of Iowa, when they turn 4, have access to high quality preschool programming. Again, I won't go into the research, but we know early access is one of the biggest things we can do for our students to ensure success later in life. They say every $1 you put into preschool, you save $7 later on in life, whether it be in education, whether it be in prison costs, whatever the case may be. So it is one of the biggest bang for your buck is early childhood education, whether it be preschool, early access, or kindergarten, first grade. Other assurances, we have to provide a minimum of 10 hours of programming per week. Most centers do about 12 to 15. You have to have a certified teacher with a license. And then we have standards just like everybody else. And so those are things that we have to do within the desk audit, is making sure that not only are our preschoolers at Westside meeting those, but all of the other partners as well. So what this means is that, again, we are working together to ensure compliance across those centers. We have to do a yearly desk audit, which is a very labor-intensive process, but getting data in essence like proof of those assurances from all of those other partners. They fine tooth comb it and like to send it back. So it is a process. Multiple times, yes. We are required to support and make sure that they're getting PD. So preschool teachers need 15 hours additional PD beyond what our other teachers need. They still need the bloodborne pathogens. They still need all of those things, but they have to have 15 hours related directly to early childhood that we have to ensure they get. It also means bringing the directors, the teachers, and having parent advisory committee meetings that we have to lead, that we have to run to review the data to make informed action steps to support the best high quality preschool programming that we can. So we do things like ghost walks and collaboration walks and meetings and all of these different things, which you'll see in the pictures. All right, then I'll manage to talk really briefly about our program specifically.
Okay, so I'm Amanda Mackey. I teach preschool at Westside. It is the joy of my life. Well, one of them, but definitely one of them for sure. I absolutely love my job. So currently we have 2 4-year-old preschool program or classrooms in our program. They are ECSE, that means, so ECSE stands for Early Childhood Special Education, but they are inclusive programs. So we have to have at least 50% of students that do not have any special, that was serious, any special needs whatsoever. That even includes like speech needs, and we have a lot of students at that young age who have speech needs who come to our program. So it's inclusive, meaning everything that we do to the greatest extent possible is done right inside the classroom. I am a special education teacher and a general education teacher. I'm in charge of both in my classroom. We do have speech come in, we have occupational therapy, we have physical therapy. But in terms of specially designed instruction and making sure that all those things are happening through all of the events of the day, that is on me, which at first felt a little bit daunting. And I wondered things like, we're gonna have a 3-year-old come into this program mid-year with 4 and 5-year-olds. There's a great gap here. Some of our children are getting ready for kindergarten, while some kids, if they have an IEP, so if they have special needs when they turn 3, in order to continue receiving services, they have to come to school. So on their 3rd birthday, they may show up in your classroom alongside.
Like today, which was March. We're in, how do you students start today? And another one was on Thursday.
Alongside 5-year-olds who are getting very close to ready for kindergarten. So the beauty of being able to have a 3-year-old program with you is that they will have peers who are really peers or at least closer to them. That's been one of our struggles. It is also a joy in a lot of ways. Connecting students with special needs with those who do not have those needs works at the benefit of both groups of students. I did not quite realize how when I started this position 4 years ago. I taught special education for years. Yes, I was having students in the general ed classrooms, but the idea of these little ones, and what if someone is literally screaming in the corner the entire morning, or a large portion of the morning, aren't 5 other kids gonna want to go scream in the corner? No, actually they don't. They have compassion for the child who is. They understand we are level with them. He is okay. That's how he's expressing how he feels right now. And they're like, oh, okay. And they move on and they support. It's beautiful. It blew my mind how amazing it really is. So the inclusive piece is just really, really cool. Challenging for sure. And really, really cool. So just a picture here of some of that inclusion happening. And that really great quote, everyone is included, everyone wins. I 100% believe that. It's a joy. So one of the things that's, I think, unique to our setting versus the other partners is that we teach using inquiry-based studies. It's very, very fun. It also can look a little bit messy. They're developed using student interests. So we have students, we take a look at what students are interested in. Really 4 and 5-year-olds are interested in everything. So that becomes a little bit challenging, but then we will vote on topics. We base the topics on things that can impact student lives. So we don't study dinosaurs. We don't study space because at 3 and 4 and 5 years old, we need to have things that are concrete in their lives. So I'll show you a list here in a minute of the kinds of things that have been chosen as studies, but that's one of the kind of guidelines for us, that it has to be something that we could see or experience right around us. We keep them very interdisciplinary. I'll show you that in a minute too. And they're different every year. I've not had a year where I've taught the same studies. There's a couple that I've repeated, but even when I've repeated the topic, the study doesn't go the same. I mean, it's, so we're planning as we go. Nothing is beautiful and laminated and ready to go like a topic unit where you pull out last year's and here you teach it again. No, you're planning as you go. You're asking them questions, they're asking you questions, and you're building your learning. And it really is a lot of fun. So choosing a topic, I ask families for student interest. I do that at our home visits. I do that in my newsletters. I do it at conference times. I make sure that I'm connecting with those families where if there's some unique thing in that family that I think other students might be interested in, I try to pull that in as a topic choice for them. We notice what students enjoy and talk about when we're outside. If there seems to be kids who are really into planting things or really interested in the trees or the squirrels or the whatever, there have been squirrel studies. We will tap into those interests. I'll pull books on a variety of topics to try to get kids interested in things and to see what ideas they might throw out. And then we vote. Typical, like, who wants this one? We do tally marks, something wins, somebody might cry, but we learned that voting is a way where we're making a fair decision. And then we keep those other ideas for future study possibilities. So these are some examples of the topics that we've studied in the last few years. Everything from trees to pizza to a health study where we set up a clinic in our classroom. Magnets, we did this winter and it was really, really fun. Lots of great science activities. And we try to pull in as many different disciplines as possible into these studies. So when I'm planning a new one, I think, okay, what science things can I add to this? Is there anything we could cook or make? Songs that I could do, obviously stories, math activities, some engineering possibilities over there on the side, and of course dramatic play and other kinds of games and activities that students would enjoy.
They all align that or.
Yes, absolutely.
Basis of what we do in school.
So it's just a really fun way to teach, a unique way to teach. It's a little messy, but it's a whole lot of fun and I feel like it's really relevant to kids.
Awesome. So with that, we're just gonna end with a quote, one of my favorites from Bill Gates, just the first 5 years have so much to do with how the next 80 turn out. So again, you know, the importance of early childhood and appreciate just the opportunity to share out with all of you and the continued advocacy during this one. There's a lot of changes coming next year and we just, yeah, appreciate the continued support and ensuring the best outlook possible for this kiddos, our youngest family. So thank you.
Thank you both for all you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Does the board have any specific questions for Shannon and Amanda?
Do we provide specialized services for preschool students who are in other programs?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So either we have to collaborate to provide them or make sure they have them. Some of them are through the AA, so if it's speech services or OT, they would go from the AA. But yes, like right now, we are sharing some students that go to Westside and Head Start so they can do their SDI or testing design instruction with us. We've done some reverse consultation methods as well. But yes, our district is responsible for ensuring special education needs of all the students in our area.
That's a lot to do, so thank you for all the juggling that you do, both of you.
Yes, I'm really excited to offer us 3-year-old specific. So thanks for talking specifically about that. You want to do?
Thought one of the coolest things when my kids were in kindergarten was we walked home with a t-shirt one day and I was like, where'd you get the t-shirt? I didn't send you with mine. And I was like, I did, but I was like,
Yeah.
It is so unique. I've not seen it happen anywhere else where there is a sense of community across the board where everybody has something. And so that's one of the, you guys are doing a lot. I'm picking on one very niche topic, but I think it's emblematic of all you're doing. So big thank you.
We're moving on to item number 10, which is new business. Item A is review and consider approval of a PPA solar project for the transportation building, which we are all in.
So, I do have, John Wilson from Perry out here. John, we've talked through, looked at solar on all our buildings. We've got new construction. Some of them it's feasible, some of them it's not feasible. And John can explain it way better than Tim can, so I'm gonna stop and turn it over to John.
Yeah, thank you. So there's some literature for everybody. Yeah, so typically started about a year ago, meeting and looking at different options. Through that process, we've looked at several buildings. Every buildings draw a lot of power into the effect of where you're into what's called a power factor and demand charge. And the buildings don't have enough land space around to put solar on or roof space to get them out of that. And one of the buildings that doesn't have that issue, we have a demand fee, is this building here between this and the bus barn together. And so if you look at this page, that's what this discusses. If you look at the back of it, it shows you kind of what your bills look like. And so it shows what the monthly bill is, which charges per kilowatt. Shows what the solar on that building would look like if we do it. And then down below, red and the blue are your solar and your usage. You do have some usage throughout the entire year, even in the summer months, just to run the building. You can see where that usage spikes up in the fall winter months. The advantage you have with the line and their net metering rules. So when you're overproducing with that red line above that blue during the summer, they allow you to bank those credits out to you. And so over the course of the year, it's going to zero out your electric bill on your usage side. The other part to this is what Tim referenced right away, is what's called a power purchase agreement. So the way that works, we use an investor to own the system, so the school doesn't have to own it. Okay. We have a local business owner that would like to possibly be the investor for you guys, tied locally to the school. And this is what we look for, is trying to find what I call friend of the industry, right? Somebody local. With that, we put in about 120 kW worth of solar. Panels have a 30-year warranty. My Groundbreakers have a 25. So long life cycle on those units. We cover the system internally for 5 years. The investor would own that system past that, so that there's no real cost to the school. So the way a power purchase agreement works is you guys don't have any upfront cost. Investor owns it, goes after a grant, goes after a tax credit, goes after depreciation. Let's use those three pieces to buy the cost of the system down and function at a lower cost. Sells you power at a discount rate. Right now, you're paying for power on average around 16, 17 cents. They're going to sell you to at a reduced rate, so 10, 11, 12 cents, whatever the line is. That's where your savings comes in. And so instead of buying that power at a full rate, buying it right now, the PPA process, you'd say about $9,000. Okay.
Just on this.
Just on this building, or just on this building, right? The advantage that, again, they have the risk, and they have all the required pieces to take it. You guys, your only risk for reliability is allowing them to use the building. Insurance wise, they're going to insure the panels, or they're going to ask you guys to insure them and reimburse you for the cost. We found recently in the last couple of years, cities, schools, stuff like that, it's cheaper for you to insure the product. It's on your roof. Insurance company says, hey, it's $1,000 to do that. They reimburse you once a year for the check. It's pretty simple. We're doing it quite a bit like that. So ultimately, there's no cost and no requirement to the school other than to pay for the electric, which you're going to pay for from Alliant or from the investor. They're going to get a small bill from Alliant even with this process. Because always will be a meter charge. Nice thing with Alliant, on positive Alliant, get the smallest meter charges on it. So it'll be pretty minimal once we get the process. We did look at other buildings. There's more than we want to talk about down the road. Talking about Carrie Lee, how that can potentially add some solar, and whether the school district owns that, or whether we find a second investor to do that project. So the second page is in there. I just put it in there for you guys to look at it. Understand that we're coming in the next month or two to talk about that one as well. That one is a demand rate, and I think we can just barely put enough on the roof potentially. You guys have enough down.
So talk to us about the demand rate, because I tried to explain it to a couple board members, and then I realized I was woefully past my understanding of the concept.
The demand rate is you pay a much lower rate per kilowatt for your power. So instead of paying 16, 17 cents, pay 4 cents. But then you pay a demand rate on the other side of that. Still equals out to about the same cost per kilowatt. It's just that you pay a peak demand rate. What that means is last month you peaked out at 300 kW. They have to be able to deliver that power to you the next month. And so the only way to get out of that with Alliant is to draw less than 20,000 kilowatt hours a month for 12 months. Once you've done that with solar, then you can go back to a regular rate customer. It's solar just pays them. Okay, there's another way to word it than tell you that. There is a possibility looking at Curaleaf that we'll be back in a month towards whether you guys own that system down the road we've talked about, or we find another investor.
Thank you for helping us explore this, because currently the Decorah School District does not have any solar projects. And environmental sustainability has been a topic that has come up, especially through the planning of our new school.
Roofs are a big issue, but it's all like you work at, nice and positive for that. That's on the past. This building was perfect.
Right.
It's not roof, sloped the right way. And that's why when Tim and I really got into this winter, we need to go after this building. Focus on that first and then come back around.
Well, I appreciate identifying the low hanging fruit or the easiest project to begin with. And continue to explore future investments. Carol, I know that you listened to it.
Yeah, so that's definitely the biggest thing for our buck we're talking about right now, starting with this building. Can you talk a little bit about the advantages, disadvantages of solar on the roof compared to like in a parking lot, you know, the bigger panels in the parking lot or on this?
Parking structure, so it's two different things.
Ground mount for our parking
Ground
lots.
mount. So if you love to do ground mount, you don't have ground space. That I can have. I mean, you do, but you're not gonna give me a soccer field or football field or anything like that. It's very common. But yeah, ground will always produce power. And so because of the angle of the panel, except for being this one, this roof's pretty steep. It's about the same as a regular ground mount. A general roof, like a flat roof like Curaleaf, that's gonna sit at about 10 degrees. Whereas a ground mount solar panel sits about 30. Also being the rear of the panel has solar panels on it now, solar cells on them. And so on the ground mount, you gain some radiation from solar off the ground. So you gain that as well. With roof mount hybrid, you're strictly just gonna gain the front of the panel. So if I can do ground, I would always do ground or roof anywhere, you know, easier to work on, easier to maintain. Let's say from that aspect. But it just takes more panels on it to be the same as it does on others.
And would this investor for this particular building would we eventually work towards owning them ourselves or?
So I recommend it, it's in the PPA that you guys can either work with a bank of your choice or you can work for a bank of trust to set up a basically a savings account. You to transfer the board to set up policy to transfer funds into there once a year. And the reason I did that years ago is boards change. And so when you're ready to own this system in 7 or 10 years, even if you don't take half of what you saved and put in that fund, then there's a seat there to do a public, right? That way, if you guys are, none of you are on the board in 7 years, you're all like, well, why do we have $60,000 sitting over here that we don't know? Oh, it's for this, it's to help pay to you guys to fold that system. And that's generally how it has to be, is a minimum of 7 years. Beginning of that 7th year, you can talk to the investor about holding it. So 5 years of tax requirement, and then the powers that be like to see 1 year of holding after that fund.
And the tax incentive window is starting to close and you want to have things. I'm sorry, did I take your question?
Well, a few, but.
But by July 1st, we want to have agreements in place and some form of construction started.
That's what we're working on at this point. Getting the formal deal signed by the investor, getting a deposit for July 1st. Starting some of the paperwork with you and the investor on what's called the formal PPA. All shows forward moving progress. We'll lock in that 30%. And that's why we're going to come back to Curaleaf next month, because there's some possibility of locking that in for July and rolling that into a further project. And yes, that's the key part.
Lily, what questions do you have?
So the discount rate, is that gonna be a static rate or is it tied to a land
it goes up about 3%. So it'll start at 11, 12 cents. Well, exactly where I had it in this one. And then it does gradually go up.
Assume no line does.
It does.
Right.
There is a clause in there, it's substantial. Let's say a line of about 20%. The investor can request to take and split up the two lots. The incentive there is for you guys to want to own it. And so, yeah, you're gonna split that with them, but yeah, let's continue to save this so we don't. Yeah, otherwise it's 3%. So pretty minimal increase.
And if we approve this tonight, and the EPA doesn't get it done by July 1st, you mentioned the grants, but those are getting done in the water right now, are we off?
I have investors that will take this project.
I
So we will have a PPA and we'll have the pieces we need in place for steps. Grants are on hold, but even then, the investor will work with the grant writer to get everything ready. So when they reopen those in July, they'll just be at the next cycle. That doesn't stop.
I don't think. It won't be till October.
And but they'll work with our grant writer to get that process. That doesn't stop us from getting into that process. And the Lions process, told everybody, understanding their process, whether I did here for your house. To get approval to put it in takes like. And then once we get it in, it's about another 45 to 60 days to get it. So there's just pieces, but the advantage is all that shows forward moving progress. So as far as tax code and stuff, we can document, hey, we're doing these pieces. And it's in construction.
Other questions?
What we need to do tonight, is it the contract with the PPA, or are we talking about hiring you? Is it, I mean, what is it that we need
So
to
I think it's asking the board approves to go forward with the project. So what you want to do, you hand the approval to review the contract with the PPA. And give it to you guys in order to review. And then if there's no major changes, we don't come back. Based on what we talked about.
If the board wants to do that, and wants to, I can certainly share it out, but it's all.
There's no reason you can't give it to the board. We don't typically come back to a board just to review that. It's a 26-page document we've been using for 15 years and give it to your board to review it. There's 2 or 3 things you want to tweak, and that's all.
And just so circle back to this, the blue line on our little chart, that's the usage.
That's your use.
And that's what we'd want to, for it to be feasible when we look at the other building. When it's way above 20,000, we know that it's probably not feasible, but this building is only a couple months above 20,000.
And you won't, this building probably will never get through if we don't pay it. Because you're not above that, or it's every month.
Okay, so yeah, it's demand rate is, so then when we look at the blue line for Kerry Lee, yeah, we'd have to, that's where you're saying it's a possibility, because you think you can get our 60,000 or 50,000 down below 20,000, which we get it down below the demand rate.
Yeah, there was like 1 or 2 months where we were really close. So again, up and down, after the difference of no snow in December and 5 snow since in December, but the plan is trying to get down to that process.
And there was a Partridge Family episode based on this one about electric usage, but I can clearly see nobody's that old in the audience.
We don't have time for that tonight. So.
But that usage, that would be something we would monitor, and the blue lines at the other schools are closer to 100 kilowatts, well, at least the middle school, high school, which is why it's not feasible to do a PPA agreement there. But the board, as I kind of mentioned in private meetings, if the board wants to explore in the future doing solar for those buildings, that could be.
Yeah, you want to put a system on the section on the roof and you own it, and it's a direct savings individually to you. That's certainly possible. Just investor can't sell you power at 12 cents or 11 cents, and your demand rate brings kilowatt power rate at 4 cents, and then your gigawatt cents. I can't get a PPA to work in those scenarios.
Other questions from the board?
No, I think it's a great idea. I'll make a motion that we move forward with our solar project here at the central office, giving Tim the power to.
I didn't very specifically, but talk about EV or the passage of that ordinance. So we don't have to.
Yep.
I'll second.
Okay, hearing a motion and a second to move forward with the PPA project for this building, the transportation building, central admin office, with Tim having approval to proceed. Any other questions or comments?
We're excited. Thank you so much for doing this, ladies.
Okay, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Okay. Thank you.
Celebrate. Okay, next, we're on item 10B, review and consider approval of a donation for a flagpole. We've been talking about our gift policy. This is a project that the board wanted to talk about and would install a flagpole that could be viewed from the football field, from the baseball field. And Tim, I'll turn it over to you to talk more about it.
Yeah, so this opportunity came forth and Mr. Riley, who I'm going to defer to shortly, has worked with possible donors and booster clubs, set some parameters and what this donation will look like. Maybe started a while back, but I'll let Adam Riley fill in the details of maybe what the vision is. I know you, Adam, we've got your document and a little map of where we'll go, and even some kind of illustration of what it'll look like.
So in the document, if you see.
Yeah, roll on it.
In the document that I shared with you in May of last spring, I think community members have interest in putting a new flagpole back in the original location where the flagpole was located for a large number of years, both used for both football and baseball, and shared elements to the school work that's actually there. It's located in baseball and football. So Adam Larson, who ended up doing a lot as far as taking a lead from the community standpoint, and done some research with a number of different groups and individuals within the community. We had some discussions initially in June, but time schedules and a lot of other things was going on. Wasn't going to work easily, so we revisited the discussion again in the fall. Late August, early September again. As we look today at getting things out, you can see that they ended up we ended up working with the Booster Club as an agent. There was a number of donors that were available to be able to use the Booster Club effort fiscal agent to support this like they had done with a number of other projects in the past. As you can see, the flagpole, there's a graphic that Adam's put together as it relates to where it would be located. I also added an additional graphic as far as the actual location of that pole. I'm going to do the exact same locations in the past based off of some we need to be in proximity to the gate that's near the track that's always been there, as well as just as far as old footings and making sure the flagpole is in that restructuring in place to be able to put that pole as it's said. As you can see, it's a 100-foot flagpole. The pole comes with a 20-foot and a 30-foot flag. And then we listed a number of things procedurally as far as when we were planning to use it. It's not as well to make sure we meet standard protocol because there's writing that's needed for that flag. But very similar to a lot of our operations when it comes time for our flag that we use for varsity level events. Having the things where we have it lit. There's different community entities that at times help us in relation to raising and lowering of that flag as we try to be able to get some involvement. I think this could be a unique opportunity for that as we go on. And then if there's specific community events within it. Additionally, I'll also say, from an operating procedure that we had on there, hey, we'd only fly an American flag, and the American flag when it comes time for that. The sizing, we could talk a little bit in relation to discussion if we could downsize that in relation to recommended the 20 by 30 is the highest rated flag for that pole. And that's obviously the flag that comes with that pole. But obviously different sizings could happen in our if we need to downsize to a 15 by 25, roughly speaking, that option is available as far as we use that.
Mr. Riley, I know that in the protocol of raising and lowering a flag, we can't let the flag touch the ground.
Right.
And a 20 by 30 flag, do you know how many people it would take to facilitate it not touching the ground in raising and lowering it?
I know it would be more than one to properly do it.
Right.
And so what
Right.
exactly, I couldn't tell you, as it relates to that, and since an operation of some of those flags where you can, you know, could you do it with 6 people? I haven't. Could do it with 1. So. Depending on what procedures that you put in place. And the only time though, when it comes time for us to really formally make sure that we are raising the flag as becomes part of an actual pregame protocol for the national anthem that we do as varsity developers. And when varsity football games occur, the VFW is our normal entity. We've also had a number of times with the flag where local law enforcement has helped us with raising and running the flags. So that's the 4 to 5 times per year. But that kind of factors in that. Other than that, we usually have the flag up prior to the event starting. At which time myself and against anybody, I would let them follow.
Right. And
It creates some unique opportunities.
I was just wondering if you talked to us a little about location and line of sight and how it would be visible for the different activities.
Yeah, so the location, obviously, from the football field will now be back to the west end, which is for the longest time from when I first started here with West End. When we did the resurfacing of the track in 2016, we also got major donations to have a new scoreboard. And we needed to move that scoreboard for track purposes to the east end of the track, so the actual scoreboard was in line and in sight line with the finish line. As it relates to this, we also put a new flagpole in at that point in time in proximity to that scoreboard. Within that, so now we would move back. So there's 2 batting cages there. You'd be right off the northeast corner of that furthest batting cage that sits off to the north. Like I said, there's an actual assembly gate there that was used to that gate for the flag raising. And directly out of center field, as we said, like later we expected that. The other piece that I added in there, we discussed with the group of the entity, obviously in a high wind situation, we're going to use the standard flagpoles that are already in place, because we find that the risk of high sustained winds or high wind gusts that can take the flag and sort of so or cause damage to it.
or someone might fly away like Mary Poppins.
That back to the
Well, thanks for providing so much context. And I know Adam Larson is here in person. I talked to him ahead of the meeting and he's here to listen, and the board has questions specifically for him who may ask, but I will turn it over to the board for discussion.
It's my understanding that this is going to be at varsity events that it would fly, that we put up, and is that all of it? Is that softball, baseball, track?
Probably the proximity isn't necessarily great for softball, but it would involve track, football, baseball, primary events.
So is that 25, 30 times, do you think?
Yeah, somewhere around
For your
per year.
So then all the other events would have the flags that, a smaller flag that apparently there are some visibility issues with seeing that flag in the national anthem. So that would still be an issue for the 9th grade, 10th grade and JV.
So we don't have the lower level events we do not have.
Oh, JV is the only, I mean, varsity is the only one we're in.
I guess my questions revolve a little bit around the document and what we're defining as standard operating procedures, and we've listed some really specific things here, and I just want to note how specific they are, and if we want to be that specific. The flip side of this is about long-term maintenance. That's the other side that I think we should talk about. Whether that be lighting, pole itself, the flag that's on it, you name it. I think there's a long-term question of who's taking care of it. not to tell you to retire, Mr. Riley, that's not what I'm saying, but at some point, I expect you will retire someday. And where does that responsibility fall when it's not Adam? Who's the next person that will take over said responsibilities? So that was a lot, some broad thoughts there, but
Yep, and we need to plan for future board members as well. Be thoughtful of the future. Yeah, service.
Particularly if it takes 4 to 6 people to put this flag up and I think it says in here, the people that would be doing that would be our administrators and our athletic and our maintenance people. And those tend to be people who have put in a lot of
See them,
lots
days,
and
nights,
lots of
weekends,
hours, and we
all the time.
so appreciate that. I'm hesitant to give them yet another duty as a sign. As much as they.
I like to say that's always part of the responsibility of the maybe and or custodians when it comes time.
It's not a new task.
No,
There's
so if we set up a football game, our custodians are doing things to set up cones and other things and having the flag in place and being ready to be able to do that. So that's all part of the flag on the track. At that start of a certain period of time, and I'm still coordinating with the person also. When it comes time to put up the flag, that's all part of our standard operating procedure. Anytime it wasn't that.
And the flag that we're using now, how many people does it take to put it up?
I did that. I sounded. Soccer flag was put up today by one of the custodians, and that's what I track that. So this one's sizable at the football field, and I have a system in place for the consent to put up. So,
And it's like, there's potential for community volunteers and.
I would not have. I don't have any concerns when community volunteers.
I appreciate the concern over high winds. And I understand that a flag can be flown in the rain, which is probably the more likely thing to have happened. But I also assume that if we take it down if every event it's not drying up on the pole. What's the plan for where we're gonna have to dry out the 25-30 foot flag?
Yeah, so I have
That's
either
the case.
ticket booth locations
Okay.
and or storage locations where I set out. So for example, Thursday night, we think we factored in standard pieces of all the equipment and the timing equipment, including the flag, all that mess, and I sent those out on Thursday night and I came back on Friday morning to make sure that we're moving this whole thing to do that, and that's the flag right out of
In the event there was needed a large space, this facility would be an option as well.
Oh, we got space. There's a
So-
front box and on the stadium, I use for something.
I think the flag in general, and it says in the document that different sizes would be considered. I think that can be dynamic where I trust that in the future, if Mr. Riley said, no, this is hard, it's not working, you need to do a small like that I because I think what I'm more concerned about is just approving the construction of the pole. And, you know, that is a permanent structure that will be there all the time, and that needs to be part of the conversation too.
do we want to stick on that theme? I'd like to pick on the operating procedures that's outlined. We're saying we're only gonna fly the American flag. Why only the American flag? Why not the Iowa state flag? So. It's a question. It's not meant to be a divisive one, but we're limiting I'm gonna say we're kind of limiting ourselves here. We want to have more option. I'm not saying that we need every option, but you know, is there more than one that makes sense? And leave that up to our thoughts. We're putting up, if we were to put up this poll, and I'm gonna use the word if, but if we were to put up this poll, my larger question would be, why are we only using it 25 to 35 days out of the year? The point of this poll is to show pride in America, to have the flag up. It should be up every single day. And that's where I think the issue lies. So we're gonna need 4 to 6 people to put this flag up and take it down. On what I think should be a daily basis. Is that feasible?
Why do you think if we're gonna fly it all the time, why would we balance? So that we're not lighting anything?
Correct.
And that, I think, is it true that the flagpole that is at the football field only flies a flag during football games, or is there a flag that's up every single day?
Flag poles at our sporting complexes only fly during those varsity games. The flag poles that are in front of each of our buildings fly 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Okay.
So my question falls around, if we're putting up 100-foot flagpole, this is going to be seen everywhere. So this is gonna be seen from one side, from where I live on the other side of the hill in Decorah, all the way to Flats. This flag will be visible everywhere. So if we're gonna put up a flagpole this large, why are we not using it for all of its purpose and only using it for 100% of the year?
Would that make it easier to have it up 24/7 and there's no putting up and taking down?
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna fly, really, you have to be aware of if you are gonna take it down, and then you fly that pole or fly that flag. Damage the pole.
Or when it's less than half mast?
Well, yeah, we're gonna have mast in the fall season.
To me, the flying it every day, the larger concern is if we're taking it down every night, that's a lot of maintenance or lighting, which I have no idea what the cost of lighting.
But we have lighting in this proposal, right?
Well, and that's where I think it gets tricky. How do you calculate what's the cost of the lighting that's being used for the flagpole? The one piece, not what's being used on the grid as a whole. So you turn on the stadium lights, how do you?
You're talking electricity.
So that's where my question comes in of, okay, what is if we're gonna light it, what's the cost to light it? How do we make sure that is offset? Because that's a regular cost. I'm not saying that it shouldn't occur, but it's a regular cost and we're already running a budget that is very challenging. So should it be lit? In my opinion, I would say no, don't light it. Put it up, take it down every day. Saves a lot of money. Now, that is a human element, and that's the part that I think is tricky. If you go the other way, we're gonna pay more money, you don't have to take it up, put it down quite often, but there's a flip side to both.
I think that if we choose to fly the flag every day, if we would, I think that we will get some community pushback from that because it does become something that is between the view from many parts of the city and the bluffs, which I think are very special to in this city. And I think that we would be needlessly causing, everybody before has opinions about everything. I think we would needlessly be causing a controversy that I think we don't need to be in the middle of.
So you're more in favor of just the varsity events like Adam was talking about?
I think it's too big of a flag,
Oh.
personally, and I did express that to Adam in my email that I sent to him. I think 20 by 30 flag is 2 and 100-foot pole are just, they're too large for this purpose. The purpose is for people, as stated, and the reason why they started this in the first place, from my understanding from them, was that people in the stands could not go to the flag when they were doing the national anthem, and they needed a larger flag. I mean, that makes a lot of sense to me. Do we need the largest flag in the whole state of Iowa at a school because of that? I just think it's more people than what we need to put up the flag. It's more flag than what we need. It's a lot bigger flag than what we need for people in the stands to be able to see. And I think that we are just causing ourselves a lot of work for, I'm not sure why, because you actually aren't more, bigger isn't necessarily better when it comes to a flag or being patriotic. I mean, you're just as patriotic if you're singing the national anthem to a smaller flag than you are with a larger flag. And I don't think that it's up to the Decorah schools to make a statement about anything about the city of Decorah by having the largest flag in the state of the school.
I think you've raised the thought that's come to my mind, which is this is going to change this, I don't want to say scenery, it's going to change what you see. If you're looking at the bluffs, if you're looking the other direction, it's going to change what you're seeing. So that's where I think we're getting into a conversation where, yes, it's gone before planning and zoning, Board of Adjustment, thank you. It's gone before Board of Adjustment to get an adjustment made already. But we as a board didn't ask for that or discuss it. And then the question is,
Actually been aware of it in my case.
yeah, I mean, we found out about it shortly before it hit the Board of Adjustment. But my question would be, from its location presently cited, City Hall is 100 yards. How far is it to get to City Hall? It's close. What's the intent? Is it for patriotism? Then we should be flying it every day. If it's for patriotism, then it's a city. We're tasking something that is a city responsibility and putting it on a school district. And so that's where I think my own pickle is. It's like, I don't want to selectively fly it. If we're going to fly it, we should be flying it. And if we're going to fly it every day, that's a big ask, either on manpower or to light it 24/7. I don't think we should be lighting it 24/7. I mean, we just talked about a PPA agreement for solar, which is to offset a cost, and now we're talking about let's add a cost. But those are counterintuitive to me. And so part of the question is, if its purpose is for visibility, then let's ask the city to make it visible and put it right there.
I know that that would be across the street
Behind all our
and
stadiums,
behind the stands, so I don't think that people at a baseball game would be able to see it
but for sure the
looking
football.
at the baseball field, or it would be behind them. I do want to keep this flagpole in the bucket of flagpoles that are used for athletic events. And Adam Riley clearly said that flags that are up all day are only the flags in front of the school buildings. I also, I'll just briefly share my opinion that we're a governance board. And we acknowledged tonight, we talked about our gift policy. And this is one project of many that have been accepted. And it was accepted by our admin team, whom I trust completely. So I am in favor of considering this project. I'm happy to talk about the flag size, but our donors have been told yes. And I don't think it's good governance to go back and tell them to change a decision after they've been told yes.
I agree. I mean, I think what we spent time on at the beginning of the meeting with our donation policy is a great thing. And I think we had a donation policy before that, and we have found out, at least in the prior 16 years, we have not been following it. So we have set, right or wrong, there has been precedent set. There's been many projects done in the short time I've been on the board that have been great assets to our facilities that we have not talked about. And this one was on that track, and it just happened to get caught up in the middle of us revamping our policy. And it's my understanding that the pole is, the equipment is purchased and on grounds.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a cost of that also, with that money's been spent. So therefore I am in favor of moving forward with this project, and I look forward to following our gift policy going forward, so we do know everything that's going on and before things happen, and we don't feel like we're learning things on the backside.
And so we can talk about
Correct,
the gifts together.
correct.
Yeah, I think I'm echoing Cindy and Brad in the sense that, you know, this was brought forth in good faith and moved forward in good faith with, you know, the boosters or whichever group we want to call it. You know, jumping through the hoops that were put before them, talking to admin, getting the board of adjustments through. And moving forward there, so I'm not in favor of, kind of retroactively pulling it. Some of the clarifications that have come over the last, you know, week or so have really helped. Aaron, I appreciate your kind of both sides of this in terms of when we fly, when we don't. I was actually very in favor of the idea of only flying it during athletic events, largely because of the visual impact and kind of reducing that impact on the larger community. At the same point, I think it's also important that we recognize that the district is going to be having a large visual impact in that same area with the construction of the new school. So the entire that area is going to change dramatically in the next 18 months, regardless of what happens with this pole. Seeing as the 20 by 30 foot flag is coming with the pole, I think it comes, but I do echo what Cindy said, is let's have continued dynamic conversations with Mr. Riley or the boosters, whoever it is, and talk about the possible. My preference would be to downsize the flag as well. I don't know all the proper ratios, but if that's 15 by 25 or whatever the appropriate size is, I think I would like that, because I agree fundamentally that the district's purpose is not to be a memorial organization or a veterans organization or a symbol of the government in of itself. We honor our flag during our events and in the presence of our school, and we can do that with a flag, but I don't think we need to make it the primary feature of our school by any means. So I think the moving forward with the installation of the pole is appropriate to me. Continuing conversations over the size of the flag is important. I hope and trust that we will continue to have support from boosters or other donors for the long-term replacement cost flags and the operational costs if it becomes a burden to our staff.
So I think the purpose of this on our agenda tonight is to approve accepting this donation or not. I don't want to get into the weeds of the protocol, or I think that can be left up to our admin team. As far as how the gift will be used, I think that our purpose is to decide yes or no, will this gift be accepted?
I agree with all our discussion. I'd like to move to approve our donation of the flagpole project.
Hearing a motion in a second, any further discussion?
I would like to explain why I'm going to vote no on this. I believe when the board first found out about this flag in January, February. Personally, I found out about it when I saw it in the newspaper. There are multiple board members who expressed concern about the size of this flag. We expressed it to our administration, knowing that there was board concern about this. It was allowed to continue, and the purchase was made, and I'm not sure at what point the purchase was made. And even though we didn't have a policy in place that we were actually following, once there was concern put forth by multiple board members, I do not think that this purchase should have been allowed to be made, to okay by the district and purchased and now stored on our property. We are between a rock and a hard place here. And I think that procedures are in place to be followed, and I think the procedures were not followed here, and I think that this is too big. If we would have been asked earlier on, I think that we would have come up with a really great compromise, a 60-foot pole and a 18 by 20, 15 by 25 flag, or a small. I would like it to be smaller than that, but there was no discussion of it. And then it's purchased and it's here, and now we're voting on it. I mean, this is just, it's the wrong way to do business.
My only reply is that the gift was accepted. And I think it's possible that materials were ordered before concerns were voiced.
I'm wondering when it was purchased. When that wasn't put in here. When was this purchased?
January. December. It was approved in I thought it was above December board.
And it was purchased right after that. Why are we voting? What's the point of us voting on it tonight?
It was requested that it was put on the agenda, and I want to talk about things that the board wants to talk about. So that was my decision to put it on the agenda.
According to district policy, I think it has to be on the agenda. Whether we're looking at it from a previous 704 policy or a present 704 policy, which we passed tonight, whichever one we're looking at, it has to be reviewed. Now, I will echo a lot of what you just said, Carol, which is the procedures weren't followed.
And you were not informed either that it was.
I think that's the tricky part. The first time I heard about this was getting a solicitation email. And it's like, where did this come from? Why am I hearing about it? Because I'm being asked for money before I've heard that it's needed or wanted or anything else. And then to say, this is really weird. Excuse me, I just learned about this, but I learned about it kind of the wrong way, in my opinion. This has been in circulation as a concept for 13 months before it gets to being fundraised for. Why haven't we heard about it before that? Because this summer, last spring, we reviewed every single board policy, 100 through 900. We talked about all of them. It took a long time. Hundreds of pages of reading. I remember this one. I used to work as a development officer, and so I remember this one specifically because I read it and I was like, oh, this makes a lot of sense. We review every gift. So when gifts are being made, I'll hear about them. And then months later to find out there is a gift and we haven't heard about it, it was like, this is frustrating. From a policy perspective, I find it frustrating. I don't think it should have gone before Board of Adjustment without it being a superintendent or board member taking it in front of them. That would have been the appropriate person to take it in front of them. It's going to be district property if it is installed, so shouldn't it be us asking for that variance? Yes, I think it should be. Now, am I saying that I'm not saying I don't want a flagpole. I think what I would like to see it used as is very different. I would like to see it used in a civic perspective. I think that is my personal opinion on what a flag is for civic pride. Something that we teach in our schools. Yes, we fly a flag in front of the school, but if we're going to fly one that's going to be 15 times larger than the one in front of the school, I think we're setting a bigger precedent. If we're going to fly one that large, that just became the visual And we should do it more often, not less often. To Ron's point earlier tonight, yes. Should put up the biggest, nicest one possible, but I also think it should be up there every single day. I don't think this is a one-off. I don't want to see it go up for a football game. I want to see it up on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And that's where I think my personal dilemma is on the installation side and the operation side of it. That's where I see the dilemma. How does it function long-term? Who's putting it up, taking it down? That's 35 times a year and it's this large. That is going to take 6 or more people to do to keep it from touching the ground. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people to organize 35 times a year, let alone 365 days a year. So that's where I see our tricky part in this conversation is how do we use this correctly? What's its purpose? Why should it be up there? And I think my last thing I'll just say is we have policies for a reason. They really do need to be, we reviewed them, we took our time, they need to be followed. And so it was frustrating personally, and I think, I don't want to speak for others, it was frustrating personally the way the project happened. I'm not necessarily upset about the final result, but I'm upset about the way it occurred. There was probably a different way this should have functioned. And that's what I think the gift policy changes are hopefully going to fix in the future, but that's its own set.
My perception is that we were informed of this project. The way that we were informed is no different than other projects that have happened in recent history.
That doesn't mean it's correct.
Agreed. So I look forward to using it more. Are there any other comments or questions before we move to a vote? Okay.
I'm going to ask the question one more time. Are we going to be stringent on the usage as set in the operating in this donation?
In terms of the American flag versus other flags or all of the above?
All of the above, because I think there's a question on what is occurring.
Does the acceptance of the donation, the gift, is it contingent on hammering out these details now?
I mean, that would be a question from that's the larger question I would like to see answered before we vote on it.
I'm not sure that this is it. My assumption is that the school district has only flown less flags.
With the exception of in front of the buildings, behind one.
Not that I will work with flags.
Is that, do we have 3 poles then? Where we fly the 3 different flags, or are they on, are you rotating on the same pole?
Same.
You just always have to back the flag top and preferably larger.
That's right on. Right.
So with the perspective, again, I'm putting this in the bucket of athletic use flagpoles, which would, if following the precedent of what had been used with that type of pole, would be United States flag only, which I'm comfortable being in this description.
I think there's a big difference between a 100-foot pole and a 20-foot pole.
I don't disagree with you.
Yeah, and I'll leave it at that.
My preference is that it's only the American flag, well, because I think if this is intentionally meant to be a large and that's why I should change it. And because I don't want the district to have to deal with their accommodate requests for in any capacity, including for a Wilkins flag. This is an instance where I think that is important. Everybody's computer time.
Well, once the first person starts getting it dig down, then you notice yours is sitting at 8% too, so.
If the board approves it as is, we could always revisit
The usage.
options, usage. It did occur to me, what happens if we have to begin to revisit that? Would that be a time that we? But that's a one-off, and the board could certainly meet and decide that for special occasions.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
No, and no, thank you to our generous donors, but I mentioned.
I'm going to abstain.
So we have 3 yes and no in director's and. Okay. I would like to suggest that we take a 5-minute break. Board support that.
Yeah.
So, thanks to all who visited today. We'll take a 5-minute break and be back at 7:35. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. Thanks for the 5-minute break. That was appreciated by all. We are now on new business, number 10, item C, which is review and consider approval of interagency agreement with Des Moines Public Schools.
So this is just a basic standard, thing that we need to approve. We, are being billed by Des Moines for providing services, for regular education. That tells me, without even knowing the student's name, which of course we block out, is we would have a student in residential facility that's getting education in Des Moines. So we have to approve these, but there is a process of taking it to the board. So we're doing that stuff tonight.
Any questions from the board or further discussion?
Motion to approve them, the money contracting services, I'll second.
Okay, motion made by Lily and seconded by Carol. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We're now on 10D, review and consider approval of the UIU Decorah Community School District Clinical Experience Contract.
And this is just the agreement that we have with the higher ed institutions that want to put students, this one is for, professional school counselors. If you see, but it's actually, teacher preparation, school counselors, it's ESL. It's pretty broad encompassing. I know we like to approve these, and probably the feedback we can give up for Iowa is we might even be open to doing a 3-year agreement. If the multi-year agreement, if they want to send us that next year.
That'd be great.
Yeah, it's great to partner with local universities, like a private university.
And did we approve this, contract?
Second.
Okay. Here's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 10E, review and consider approval of the high school science curriculum.
So it's, we do our curriculums like in a 7-year cycle where we rotate them through. Some curriculums are larger than others. This science curriculum is a bit larger than we've had in the past. We provided some information for the board about what the last couple of years have been, but this year it's a request for $123,000. Should note that this comes at a time when we're transitioning with 2 science teachers with a lot of experience that are retiring, well earned and deserved retirements coming their way. But that also we had maybe pushed the adoption just back. We hadn't, I don't think we'd adopted the last 2 times we had a science cycle. Look at Mr. First, and so this is much needed, and it was great that the retiring science teachers were able to work with their knowledge and maybe didn't need the most up-to-date textbooks, but it will be good to have new staff with new textbooks. There's an online component, and what I know, I thought, oh, online would be great, it'll be cheaper and it'll refresh every It refreshes every year, but the cheaper part is it always there. So we could, I know Brad Hurst has a lot more to add to this, but due to the length of the meeting, I'll just open it up if the board wants to ask me or Brad questions. Or Dana, who also provided some information about adoption cycles. We could do that. Otherwise.
So, Mr. Hurst, can you clarify for us, when is the last year that the investment was made in the science curriculum?
Keep me up perfectly. So, physical science, book.
Hey, I use that.
Actually, so I went to high school, my freshman year was 1993.
This is your photo op, Russ.
This is my photo op. This is the book we've been using for physical science since 1994. And a good piece of data that Mr. Johansson said is he's often had a case where he's had kids sign out the book and they've seen their parents' name on the book. More of this has happened more than once. And so like Jonathan Carlson's right here, in case anybody wanted to know, you get this book at some point. So this book has traveled a lot of distance and served a lot of students, but it has definitely, as we can see, It's held together by more tape than cover at this point. This is kind of the standard quality of what we have through all of our textbooks. Obviously, we've been able to get by with some very veteran experienced teachers, but it's time has come to get some new materials for our new teachers. We also have a request for some new lab equipment, some other things that we have as well. But as Dr. Farnell alluded to, you know, when you buy textbooks, we're buying this classroom sets. We got a lot of new classes that we offer now, and then you pay for the online subscription, which is not cheap. But as you integrate things with your one-to-one devices and Canvas and all those things, it's just the cost of doing business a little bit. So would ask for the board's support of this. I will say that there was a lot of work that was invested by our science teachers working with Jason Martin Heiner, science consultant with the ADA, to really vet resources and look at things and really look at what equipment they needed, which was a lot. So it is at high expense, but I think of it as an investment. As a former science teacher myself, what they're going to be able to do with the books and the resources and the program is going to bring it up to the 21st century. It's a great thing to hand off to some new science teachers that will work with us. So.
And I'd be remiss if I didn't add in, just because we had, just as the textbooks are old, doesn't mean that the level of instruction was poor or.
No.
Do any certain, whether it's.
And I would encourage anybody who's still got a little bit of time, go into Mr. Hayes or Mr. Johansson's classes and just observe, because it's pretty phenomenal what they're doing in classroom every day.
And we get really positive feedback from students that are going on to higher education and their preparation and all subjects for service assignments.
And just to clarify also on that, that we have been doing a lot of updating on textbooks the last 10 years. So just so when we put this on the paper, that's not what all the textbooks are.
I heard that also. It's like, no, the science ones.
Because of the expertise of these.
Yes.
I'll make a motion that we approve the new science curriculum.
I'll second.
Hearing the motion in a second, does anyone else have questions?
This is just a curiosity thing, but adding the human body systems class, is that due to student interest, career alignment?
Yeah, we have a lot of interest in nursing specifically. And so we have offered the PLTW biomed course the last couple of years. Mrs. Boyd's taught that. And this actually teaches it very well, and it's drawn interest in other things. So then this year we added the human body systems, which is the next course in that sequence. And it's popular as well. So it's almost becoming so popular that we'll have to rearrange how we do some things with what else she teaches because of the level of interest. But nursing is for sure a high demand, high interest career choice for our students right now.
Great. And then I guess the other thing I put, these ones are, I assume, going to be purchased very soon, but when I wear my development hat, there are a number of things on these that I feel like they're like attractive applications. So I don't know if they're, it's probably hard to do that now, but I just encourage you to continue to communicate with community partners who can support.
I'm curious. So the one part of this that I find interesting is the shift in the last 10 years to what I will define as so much digital content. I'm seeing both sides of the spectrum at the moment in terms of the data supporting more use of technology. I'm just seeing the flip side that maybe at younger levels, it's not quite as advantageous for long-term learning. So I'm 100% on board. I think one of the most interesting parts about walking into a Johansson class is it is so interactive. And so, I mean, I'm picking on one teacher doing one thing, but I think that's one of the reasons why the students are so engaged is how engaging he is. And we don't necessarily need a tablet to make us interested in science. And so it'll be great to have. I'm curious how much we'll use the online versions and the digital side of things in the years to come. Just as 10 years down the road, I'm curious how much things will look that direction versus the other.
I think part of that just. We can move on, but I think part of that is they only buy one classroom set of the hardcover books to use in class, and then the students don't have these huge backpacks full of books that they're taking home. They can take their computer home with them, with books online is a big advantage of.
Another part of it is they say update the online textbooks constantly. Which is a nice skill for it as well, and then there's also some things that we can do with translating with some of the features with videos. That you can kind of go beyond what. So it does have that feature, but.
Other questions or comments? Before we move to one. Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Hi.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. It's a great investment. We're on item F. Review and consider approval of the construction decision process. So Dr. Cronin and Carol and I have the joy of meeting with our construction team for a Zoom meeting every other week, so twice a month. And we get updates from the team, and that's an opportunity for us to give them feedback of what we're hearing in the community, and we can ask questions. And as we move past the excavation permit type work, and when we are, granted a building permit, construction will begin. And there's a lot of details being managed at once. And I would like us to have a discussion around the framework of decision-making, because there are going to be things that come up that would fall under the authority of a small team like Carol and Tim and myself. And there are going to be bigger other things that warrant a board decision. I want to keep pace with the timeline needs of the project and being able to move forward quickly. But at the same time, I don't want to over zoom past things without the board having a say. So Tim, I'll turn it over to you. You had drafted some ideas that are included as an attachment in our board packet.
Yeah, so anytime I've not been involved with the building project of this scope, we've done smaller things in the districts, or I guess it came in late on Dr. Tim's elementary. But yeah, there are always decisions that they need made, and they're time dependent. And they're just, it would be difficult to say, oh, I'll call a special board meeting to decide, what we're doing with this, with the
Change orders.
Yeah,
basically.
change order.
Yeah.
And we don't anticipate too many, but there's always that possibility. I certainly appreciate, this is the first time I've had board members in the meetings with me, and I appreciate that, because I think that's helpful to have another set of ears and just folks that can help report to me to the board. But we want to get to a comfort level, because we also understand that, that means that Cindy and Carol are involved in all or many of the decisions. And then how do we make sure that Brad and Aaron and Lily are left out or caught surprised, or so we just kind of need a framework or parameters about what the board's comfort level is. I could see it be the kind of thing where some boards might say, well, we want to be involved in every decision, and then you got 10 meetings in 11 days, or you could go months without having a decision to make. There's no rhyme or reason necessarily there. So, but we talked about this in the pre-board meetings, and I think people understood the need for it, and it just kind of gets down to, the questions at the bottom. What would you like the spending threshold to be? How can we best communicate? I did share out Blake's monthly report this month to the board and their weekly. So you kind of see it if you scroll to the back of that, he actually had the spending in that document. Is that going to work? And
I know that in my experience being on this committee through the planning phase, and even in this beginning of the construction phase, it is nice having three sets of ears that are listening and three brains that are asking questions. And there have been moments when the three of us have said, we want to take this back and talk to the board. There have been those moments. So I would feel, Aaron and Lily and Brad, I want to hear from you about how how is best for you to receive information and stay updated, and what are you comfortable?
Well, I think we're all on different committees and we all are tasked with different things, so I don't think we have to have full board participation and everything, and I trust your three's judgment on when that is required. As far as a spending threshold, I don't have an opinion on that really per se. The one thing I'd like is when you have something to share, you can share it. And maybe it's you know, for the next 10 months, it's a standing agenda item on our monthly meetings so that we could just get updated. And if we have questions, it would be a time for the 5 of us to have a conversation. And you know, might be a 3-minute one, it might be, everything went smooth, great. You know, I mean, it's just, and I think, and obviously it's limited on what we can do, communicating with all 5 of us, so that's my thoughts is, and as far as some of our thresholds, I guess we can have a discussion on what everybody thinks on that.
Yeah, we shared similar opinions on that when we were talking this week, getting ready for this meeting, that there's a lot of trust involved in being on board. And so do I feel like I need to know everything happening on this project? I don't need to know the nitty-gritty day in, day out. I like being aware. And so absolutely having that be a standing item, I think would be awesome. But a trust factor of, I'm gonna trust you, make the right calls. There's things you want us to weigh in on, ask, but otherwise I'm not gonna wade in necessarily. I might ask some questions along the way. It's the top of my head, but I don't feel the need to weigh in to jump into these type of things very often. I don't know about a spending threshold. You could set it at $100,000 and all of a sudden we're changing, I said this in our meeting, changing the drywall from one type of drywall to a different thickness, and we're gonna hit that 100,000. And do I need to weigh in on drywall? No, I don't think I do. And so the number, I don't think there's a number. I think there might be a scope question of like, okay, we're talking about changing something in its scope versus
functionality.
Yeah, the flow, the function, the
Design.
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I think that's the side where it's like, if something's coming up, sure, absolutely, be happy to. But otherwise, I'm gonna put a lot of trust.
Yeah, I think there's actually a lot of parallels between this to me and I guess policy in the sense that it's trust, as you guys have both said, but also if there's something that you're not, then come to us because it doesn't have to rest on just 2 or 3 of your shoulders. So if we can, if there's ever something that you feel like it needs to be escalated to the full board, we can do that. I would say that something that getting to you a little bit, what you're saying, you're in the sense of something that's like, especially if it's going to be really public facing, and just a change that is going to be really visibly noticeable to the public or could impact functionality of the school, that I think does merit it, but I think you guys have known that as they come up. Yeah, whether it's, as you said, and if they start excavation and discover something that's or you just have to deal with it.
We don't have a lot of choices on some of it.
Down there.
But we have the genius solution of the colors that are
Yeah.
gonna support. I'm so excited for that. I think that's an incredibly creative solution that has gotten rid of a lot of my fears and nightmares about what could happen when they start digging. So
I would just add that I think Tori and Curtis, same kind of thing with the loop, and I think that they already are in communication with our builders. And, yeah, so I mean, your decision making and input is critical.
thanks for being so responsive and for listening and to those things.
And my assumption is that change orders are gonna be documented in Procure anyway, that we all have access to, right?
Right.
So.
After they're, yeah.
We'll have notice of those.
I guess I was gonna highlight something, because we had the pre-board meeting, it was Aaron and Brad, and they mentioned, where everyone's on committees. For example, we're to meet, we did a negotiation, we're gonna do our round of negotiations. Obviously, we made decisions tonight. I'll get it ready and we can share it out with the board, but that's another example of, you'll be called to a board meeting at some time when we have got an agreement, and your input will be,
Oh, yeah.
will not be a lot on that, is, Aaron and Brad are the negotiations. So that's just another example of how that might work, or does work.
So I'm comfortable with what we just talked about. And thinking back on just knowing that there's 3 brains that, and Lily has offered to volunteer her time if there are special conflicts for either Carol or myself to happen. To decide what comes to the board or not, and leave it at that.
And we can return to the discussion in maybe 3 months when we start. And it's really, if we start seeing lots of decisions being made that are, we can, it's $100,000 of drywall, but suddenly it's 7 decisions. So,
Yeah.
I don't think we need to take
This is
formal
just a
action on this,
discussion.
but just, we can just keep this as a discussion, and that helps us communicate with our construction teams moving forward.
Can we just add the date for the groundbreaking, just so everybody put on the calendar?
Oh,
Maybe, well, is that something that we're?
You get a shiny shovel?
Well, we sure can. So on Tuesday, May 12th. At 2:15 p.m. There will be a formal ribbon cutting ceremony to officially, or groundbreaking, not ribbon cutting, that's it.
Not quite.
Yeah, no one would be so excited.
That's why I asked for your PR help.
Groundbreaking ceremony, and there will
220, I bet.
2:20, thank you.
Or what you wait.
right. So at least it wasn't too bad.
And this will be a photo opportunity that will involve adults and kids, and there will be a formal press release to come very soon.
Well, we be done by the time school's over, because that could be a lot of extra cars there. I mean.
Done with this meeting or what?
No.
Well, we're gonna.
That too.
Yeah, we want to do it at 2. We can
Well,
talk about that. but-
There were reasons why we chose 2:20, so I
Strategically-
trust Tori.
You're trying to decide between,
I mean, you're gonna have to park
Yeah.
for parking spots, you'd have to do that any time of day.
Yeah.
There's also going to be students there, and so they have to go home eventually, preferably on time. One is a kindergartner, and Justin's offering for him to stay apparently. So.
but I think initially they said, oh, we could do the groundbreaking at 5. And, well, we could, and parking would be, not a problem, but I think the group kind of was like, well, yeah, but we're doing it for children.
Yeah.
And children that have to give up a majority of their playground for a year and 3 or 4 months. I don't think I think it's a great idea to have it be, during the school day. And just understanding, we strategically kind of placed it near the end of the day because there's excitement level and we're not gonna go back into school and learn. And it's not gonna be a 2-hour,
It'll be very scheduled, minute to minute.
so.
And there can be time, we'll prioritize photo opportunities with kids while we're
That's
there,
all right.
and then we can have
I
other
don't know.
adult photos taken after as the kids are dismissed from buses.
So we'll have to, would we have to post that
As a public.
if we're all
board
gonna
meeting.
be there?
We should.
Sure.
We'll
Or no.
follow every rule. Okay, moving on, we're on item G. Review and consider approval of capital projects update. We talked about this list earlier.
Yeah.
Tim, do you want to give us the highlight?
Yeah, so we just have a few that are over the $25,000 threshold. We've got 2 items that are music related. And if you see in there, there's a donation match now. I don't want to, but there's a contribution of the Booster Club has, I said, has $100,000 they're ready to donate to the Sound Shells and Cloud for the auditorium. So we had overestimated that the project might cost $200,000 total. And then that would only cost the district $100,000, but whatever the total is, we'll take off. And so those two items, that's the Sound Shells and Clouds for the high school auditorium. So if I add those two items together,
$155,000.
and I hear it might be about $155,000. And if I get $100,000 for the Booster Club, this is projects with the cost of district in Pepple or say $55,000.
And then the boosters like committed 100,000, not 50%.
Booster Club has been budgeting for the last better part of 5 years for this project. Have access of $100,000 budgeted for this moment. To be able to get this installation done, when it comes time for it. So from the district standpoint, I believe it's a little bit of an excess of $100,000. I was not at last meeting, but the district will pick up the rest of the cost, and the unfortunate that don't see that you can't get a hard cost until we commit to the project would be these acoustical shells actually require lighting systems to put in. So on the cars that the current policy we get, it actually lights electric bill installing for them in addition.
So that's a big item.
I should say the existing system that we have was original from when the renovation occurred in 1892. Donations as well as some costs for that project.
And that's when the auditorium was constructed
Correct.
in 1992.
Yep. Correct. So I believe these current ones came like in 1993. And a few costs without it. And they're aging. When it comes to it. So we kind of went through an extensive process with different systems that we could potentially do. We then kick the tires on using a little bit nicer system that would have involved making the back garage door actually have to be expanded and open. We have to settling in on a system that would not require us to do that from a state standpoint. And have a little bit more adaptability as far as the process. We have to use these acoustical shells in practice gym, as well as the mobile. See, we can keep our events in the cafeteria. Have pros with them, as well as just off the house.
And we have in there the RFP that went out for the track resurfacing. We're about a 10-year mark. We originally had put down about $250,000 for this item. Then we had lowered it down to 115. But the good news is we got a bid from Fisher that we feel good about, $99,000. One of the things that I appreciated was not waiting until it was past due and maybe then it being a lot more expensive to. So we're just talking about a refresh, but just taking off the top layer. I'm not talking. So here's where I'll let Mr. Riley talk. Explain what the plan is and why now is the good time to do it.
So in the summer, you can kind of see where we're at from a historical standpoint as far as when the initial layers have happened and occurred. In 2016, we did actually scrape and then needed to be add a 2-inch width of asphalt to be able to create a new mat and spray on top of it. You can usually get 2 to 3 cycles of structural spray. So now the mat is still in great condition, but we need to add some more structural spray. Some of that does wear off with the latex system that we do use, which actually kind of prototypical. A lot of people come look at our track as far as how it wears in our environment. So obviously, you can see that max of 10 years. And it's still performing really well. We would wait another year or two, then we get ourselves into actually damaging the structural mat. If we damage the structural mat, then we have to come back and do a full spray of asphalt, which is that's pretty extensive cost when it comes time to the project. We put the budget number a little higher because I didn't know what would happen with inflation. And other things, and Fisher Track has done our last 2 structural sprays, as well as the mat with one side. As far as how it's going to obviously be participating in all 3 factors that are created very expensive.
It's an outstanding price.
Yeah, and really even the other 2 would be totally different as well.
Yeah.
You said this would be likely the second of 3 times that we might be able to do
Yes,
this.
if it wears, if you do enough preventative maintenance, as long as that mat holds up pretty well, what happens with it, you can sometimes get burnt, but. Can't guarantee that anymore, but anybody can say, hey, this structural spray will likely not last 10 years. Usually that first one is where you can get the best put on.
Would this resurfacing include the long jump?
Yes, so that would, it's the long jump pit and low high jump pits, so, and the last one being as well, so.
And a new board,
But,
that board needs to be replaced.
yeah, boards be yeah.
So, the agenda item is kind of grouped together to approve the items that are over 25,000. And then just as a note, adding to, I did add one item, the furniture, $8,676 for Carrie Lee, which was not on previous, things. I think we're in year 3 of a furniture, refresh at Carrie Lee. So, we can approve those all together or individually or.
So where's the furniture information?
Just on
Furniture,
the
it's just-
document.
It's down at the bottom of the spreadsheet and you can see it's about line 55, so.
So for some reason, maybe my view, oh, here, I figured it out. User. Anyone else has trouble scrolling down,
There we go.
hover your mouse slower. Scroll.
So are we, approving the acoustical shells, the MySpace for the ceiling panels and the track refurbishings? We can do those all together? Or do we
Yeah, I think it's
So
one that
we're not actually approving the state the projects, the spreadsheet, we're approving these 3 separately.
yeah, you're approving the amounts that are over 25,000, I guess, and then, I guess you're
Specifically
approving,
these 3.
yeah, these 3 items is what you'd be approving, and then the addition of the furniture request.
I'll move that we approve, agenda items 9G, 1, 2, and 3.
I'll second.
Hearing a motion and a second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
And then, so that's the 3 items that are over the 25,000. Adding furniture to the spreadsheet would be, I guess, require a separate motion.
Even though it's 8,000, just because it doesn't.
Well, it's gotta be, it
Oh.
doesn't exist on the list until you guys approve the list with it on. That's the way I.
I'll make a motion that we add the Carrie Lee furniture to our project list.
Which is the 8,000.
Yeah, right there.
Okay, so a motion has been made to approve the updated list. That was made by Brad, seconded by Aaron. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next, item H, review and consider approval of an amended 2025-26 school calendar. We did this last year where we had more hours than we needed. And we gave, was it 2 days back?
We did two days back last
And
year.
we are set up to do the same thing again. I just want to say that this is not a fun surprise that the board likes to have power and just grant at the end of the year, but the reality is that we've had snowstorms in the spring. And it feels like spring out today, but we need to wait until now to make a thoughtful decision about that. Regardless of the end of the school year only being weeks away. So I value our teachers and staff, and I hope that, you know, I would like to consider forgiving these 2 days of school to, as a way of giving back and letting them start when their summer before the holiday weekend.
Are we approving this as students and staff or students only, or?
Yeah, so this would be approving a calendar, so that's gonna forget 2 days for students. We should probably have some direction on what that means for staff, because staff have Or the days, students have hours they have to meet. This would get the students to 1,091 hours, so they'll be okay. But then what the recommendation would be for staff and administration recommendation is we would also forgive 2 days for staff. And so that would be teachers and all non-261 day employees. So yeah, paras and food service. It would include those. For the custodians, it doesn't apply because they're 261 day employees, so we can't always forgive days they're working or not. Curtis has done a nice job of recognizing those employees during the winter months and a couple times this year when we had some days didn't have staff come in. Don't always know that, but I know it because I get thank you emails from a couple different employees thanking me for being a kind boss. I appreciate that. I miss the Curtis. So it doesn't fit for everybody, but yeah, I mean, I guess not just custodian. This office has 261 day employees, and the high school admin is also 261. But yeah, this would forgive for students, and I would include the recommendation to include the staff that are that would impact.
It'll make a lot of people very happy.
It will.
with this program.
It would make it easier for me to go home tonight. I've been asking about it.
And apologies for not knowing enough about this, but for those staff that you're giving the days for that are hourly staff, what happens with them?
We have traditionally compensated them, so they don't lose out on wages for that.
It's a good question.
Thank you for asking.
And I'd like the staff part of it too, because I think it gives. We're gonna be negotiating, I think anything we can do to compensate our staff and make them feel welcome and appreciated is a great thing to do. So I would make the motion that we approve the amended school calendar for 25-26, including giving those days off for staff.
Okay, I have a motion and a second, any further discussion?
Say that on the staff side, I know that the teachers are working more than until 3 o'clock, 3:30 every day. I think these extra 2 days being off, you can factor them in for the hundreds of hours they're working outside of the school day at home.
Gratitude for all that everyone in our system does. Okay, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next, we are on item I, review and consider approval of the 26-27 school budget. Christy's here. And Christy prepared some slides to the board. Thank you so much, Christy, for your time in doing that. And are you ready to cover them?
I'm ready as I am. So
Great,
let's
thank
go. I think Denise is going to be working her magic.
What, wrong one, sorry. Hang on.
Yeah, I
So,
think
I'm
know
not
what
sure-
doing there.
I'm not sure
Yes. I don't
when
know
the
what
last time we had a budget presentation. I know some districts do it. I've shared that as a occupational hobby, I read other people's board agendas and minutes. And I saw that and I said, oh, I wonder if we'd ever want to do that sometime. And I emailed Christy and Joan and I said, someday we should have a budget presentation. I don't know. Within about half a day, Christy said, I'm working on it. I said, well, I know you got a lot going on. You don't have to do it today, this year. We could do it another year. And then another day went by and she's like, it's up to 15 slides. So
Did it on my weekend,
Yeah.
my weekend job.
So we appreciate this and I know there's a lot of great information.
Okay, so welcome to Decorah Community School District's 26-27
Sorry,
budget presentation.
go ahead.
So tonight, our 26-27 budget agenda is we're going to talk about enrollment, SSA, spending authority, budget guarantee, certified budget, revenues, expenditures, and our property taxes levies. And we'll start with our enrollment first, how it impacts our budget. So the main types of public school enrollment are, we have head count enrollment, open enrollment in and out, special education weightings, and preschool budget enrollment. So headcount enrollment, this is the number of resident students and is the primary driver for the amount of state funding the district receives. Open enrollment in and out is tuition is due from the resident district to the serving district, which includes the budget year state cost per pupil of state aid and the following supplements. So it includes teacher leader, professional development, early intervention childhood, and early learner if applicable. And our special education weightings, the special education weighting is an additional amount we get to count a student for purposes of the state funding formula. So an increase in weighting means more funds to support our students with special needs. And our preschool budget enrollment, this is the number of students we count for purposes of 4-year-old preschool. This number represents 50% of the actual number of children served because the state only provides 50% of the cost. The enrollment outlook slide compares last year's numbers to this year. So over to the right, the change from the previous year. So our enrollment from 24-25 was 1450 students. Our enrollment 25-26 is 1428. So the change, we're down 22.52. Our total weighted enrollment is the number of total weighted enrollment this year is 1497. And the change there is 29.02. Our preschool enrollment, the enrollment for 24-25. So we had 75 students, but we get funding, state funding for 37.5. And our enrollment for 25-26 is 98 students, and we get funding for 49. So the change is up 11.50, so that's good. ESAs, so these are Iowa's educational savings accounts. So our ESAs for 24-25 were 121 students, and our ESAs for 25-26 are 180. So the change is up 59. And this chart here just shows you Decorah's enrollment history. So it just takes a look at from 2017 all the way to 2026, just shows you where our numbers are at. And this slide shows us Decorah's open enrollment and our ESA history. So the blue is open enrollment out. The red is open enrollment in, and the yellow are our resident students utilizing an ESA. So now we'll talk a little bit about our state supplemental aid, which we refer to always as SSA. So for the 26-27 school year, Iowa lawmakers and Governor Kim Reynolds approved a 2% SSA increase. So this rate brings the state cost per pupil to $8,148. The per pupil impact, so the 2% represents a $160 increase per student over the previous fiscal year. So also in this, there was a related provision that the law includes approximately $7 million for paraeducator and support staff pay, along with extending property tax relief and addressing funding for schools using the budget guarantee. And I did look at this. So for FY 25-26, the district received $42,245 for paraeducator and support staff pay. So when I went on the IASB, the Iowa Association for School Boards, I found their projection for Decorah community school districts for the 26-27 year. And their estimate is that we're going to get $21,117. So then I looked at, well, how do they figure this? So they take our district enrollment times total funding available, and they divide that by our statewide enrollment. Now, the Department of Management does have the opportunity, so they're the actual ones that are going to decide this amount. So hoping that it is higher than what is projected here. So we will have to see. Our state cost per pupil for 26-27. So this screen just shows you, I just kind of broke it down to show you. The school aid formula funds school districts through a mix of state aid and property taxes. So funding is generated on a per pupil basis with the per pupil amounts providing an overall budget limitation or spending authority. So for FY 26, our cost per pupil this year, we get $7,988 per student. if you take a state percent growth of 2% and add that to that, that gives us for next year, $160 more for each student. So our FY 27 state cost per pupil is $8,148. So spending authority, the state funding formula provides us spending authority. So we are limited in total spending by the number of students we have times the state cost per pupil. So, and there are a number of components of our general fund spending authority that are set by the state, such as our regular program district costs, our budget guarantee, supplementary weighting, special education, TSS, which is our teacher salary supplement, professional development, PD, early intervention district cost, TLC, which is teacher leadership compensation, our AEA district costs, and our dropout prevention. And these all are all of our combined district costs. So then what I did is I just wanted to know what the increase would be. So I just took 4 of these categoricals. So the state categorical supplements are funded entirely through state aid and generate funds for each school district using a formula on a per pupil basis. So we'll just look at one, TSS, teacher salary supplement. So this year we get $684.47 for TSS per pupil. So with the 2% growth, that will add another $13.68 to that, which will bring our FY 27 state cost per pupil $698.15. And I just took 4 of those, and you can see the other ones, what the small increases, I guess, on the other 2 are. So. And then our budget guarantee. So the Iowa budget guarantee is a state law ensuring school districts with declining enrollment can maintain a 1% increase in their regular program budget over the previous year. So this money is covered by the state general fund instead of local property taxes. In previous years, the budget guarantee was fully funded by property taxes. So for the 26-27 school year, about 2/3 of Iowa districts, roughly 200, are projected to trigger this provision. So Decorah Community School District FY 27 budget adjustment guarantee is $67,124. So to wrap up SSA, this I got from Iowa Association of School Boards. So this is talking about, and I know Tim talks about new money quite a bit. So the new money changed by component. So new money, what does that mean? So new money is a change in total regular program funding from FY 26 to FY 27. So when we look at FY 27, our enrollment change, we're down 22.5 students. So if you take that times $7,988, our enrollment change impact, we're going to be down $179,730. Then if you look at our budget guarantee impact, which shows that we're going to be down $271,448. How they got that was last year, so for the 24-25 school year, we were actually we got our budget guarantee was $338,572. So that's what we got.
You mean the 25-26, the last year?
Yes.
Okay.
So we got $338,572 because we were down 59 students. So we're down 22.5, which still isn't good. However, the guarantee is you get more, the more students you're down, the more money you get to make up that difference. So we're getting less money. So we're getting the 67,000. And if you take that, the 33,572, and you minus the 67,124, that is where you're going to get that we're going to be down to 71,448. Does that make sense? It's kind of confusing. So our total new money for FY 27, we're going to be down $222,714. And they're just looking at our overall FY 26 program district costs, minusing our FY 27 projected district costs.
So there's no new money, really.
No,
We're
It's not
down,
a good sign when it's a negative number.
it's down 1.9%. So certified budget, a document showing the amount of taxes to be levied for each fund or program and the aggregate revenues and expenditures. So this report is certified to the county auditor by April 15th, so this week, each year by the upcoming fiscal year after holding a public hearing and approved by the board of directors. The certified budget is important because it ensures fiscal accountability, determines property tax levies, and aligns limited funding with educational goals. So this is just a pie chart of Decorah revenue sources. This just shows you that approximately 6% of our funding comes from federal dollars, 42% comes from state, and then 52% comes from local. And this is our Decorah total revenue. So this is our budget for 2027 of our revenues. And this is what we put in the paper for our second budget public notice. So these are our revenues. And then these are our expenses. And again, these are estimates. So we do our best to try to figure out what the revenues are going to be for like for the next school year and what our expenses are going to be. And we look at trends. So again, it's not exact.
And
So-
the big one, of course, expenses is the building project,
Yes.
which you see on line 33. So that skews when you look and you say, oh, wow. When you do total other expenditures, line 35A, why did it go from 13 million to 31 million? Well, we're building a school, that's why. And we anticipate an increase of 210%.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So this page just shows that school districts levy property taxes to bridge the gap between state funding and the actual cost of operating schools, funding essential day-to-day operations. So these local levies pay for staff, technology, transportation, and building maintenance not covered by state aid. And this just gives you an example of some of our, like our ISL levy management, voted PEPAL, regular PEPAL, debt service, uniform, additional cash reserve, and then our district levy is what at 13.3796. And again, this is what we published in the paper. This is the entire budget, and then at the very bottom it says this is what everybody got sent to them. It was our proposed property tax rate of 13.37957. In conclusion, the estimated amount we will spend in all funds July 1st, 2026 through June 30th, 2027 is $62,314,744. However, this does include the new construction costs. The property tax rate for July 1st, 2026 through June 30th, 2027 is 13.37957. And then last, this was just a fun page I added in, and Tim didn't say no, so. So I'm just like, you always have to have goals, like I'm a goal-driven gal. So for 26, 27 budget goals, so prioritize, and some of these we have already put into place, so that was exciting. Prioritize each and every student, so prioritize students and their educational experiences. Start with cuts farthest from the classroom. Protect the district's strategic priorities, moving funds from other areas as needed. Reduce expenditures, reduce the budget by $600,000 through efficiencies and trimming versus elimination of programs and services. Maintain consistent and predictable operations and services while improving efficiency. Increase revenue, explore innovative approaches to find areas to increase our district revenue. And maximize facility rentals, apply for specialized grants, and research options for sharing to increase revenue. And plan for the long term, sustain our long-term financial picture. Develop a plan to address district structural issues that result in budget deficits. And thank you for your time. Do
Christy,
you have any questions?
thank you so
That's
much,
great.
because this was a very concise drive-by that not only helps us as board members, but this is going to be an incredible tool for the public.
Mhm.
You know, so board members, if the public is asking us questions in YouTube, you can like share a link that is time stamped to where to begin. I'm gonna use this as a tool.
Well,
It's really valuable, so
Well,
thank you so
thank you.
much.
Thank you. And that's, I tried to think of it as a taxpayer's look at it, because
Yes.
all of you know these terms here, but a lot of people just out there watching don't.
Right.
They don't understand behind the, all this, the verbiage, I guess, so.
Right,
It's
and
my start.
when they
and-
get their statement in the mail that says specifically that the
Yes.
school district is changing the tax rate, that can cause alarm, so, thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone have specific opinions for
Oh, yeah.
Christie about what's happening year to year? With shifting enrollment?
This is so well done, and I so appreciate how much you have learned in this short time that you have been in this job.
It's something every day new.
You're doing a great job, and there are so many variables, not only with declining enrollment, which is a trend statewide, but then also with ESAs impacting, but we've said it before, but enrollment matters, and this was a beautiful drive-by to show exactly how much that's financially to the district.
There's a moment in there when Tim chirped in a percent that I thought was really helpful, so. And you eloquated it very well. The state's giving us 2% more next year, $160 per student. But our actual funding is going down 1.9%. That's, there's the rock, there's the hard place right there. Very well said. The numbers showed it very well, thank you.
And the number of ESAs increasing, that is alarming, and it matters. It impacts public education. And we are a service that serves all students. Everyone is welcome.
But also note that our other private education centers in Decorah do funnel into our high school system. So this is affecting everyone. It's affecting students, regardless of where they go in elementary school. So in addition to listening to Christie's presentation tonight, our task is to review and consider approval of the 26-27 school budget. Does anyone have specific questions around the published or the shared budget? Tim, any comments?
I would make a comment as a reminder, when we did the new school project, our target rate was to raise taxes to about 13-17 in that range. And you'll notice we published, well, this one is published at 13.37. We, as a practice, publish a higher budget and have then had the opportunity after the legislative session is over to come back together and review and lower. And what has actually happened from the first to the second, I think our first tax rate was 13.47. So we've already lowered it 10 cents. But we didn't actually do anything. What the state did is they passed that budget guarantee resolution that they said, oh, that $65,000 won't be put on the taxpayers of Winnebago County or whatever school district. The state will take that. So the state's covering that, which then that's one of those adjustments that the state makes that lowers our tax rate. And by publishing a little higher, we get to get a little bit more flexibility. We're always allowed to adjust down. We just can't adjust up. And recognizing that the next couple of years with our building project will be a little tight with our tax rate. And so wanting to make sure that we are as efficient as we can as a school district to make sure we get the funds we need. But understand that we'll also come back in June after the legislative session is completed, and we'll look at that tax rate again with the opportunity to reduce that. So,
And by law, we cannot reduce it.
and there was a bill that said something. Usually the big hang up is we don't even know what SSA is. This year we did know what SSA was. But there was a bill that says if SSA isn't set, school districts can then adjust up, which makes all the things that we may allow pointless. You know, we'll just get people really mad and then really, yeah, okay. I'll focus on, yeah, I'm just gonna focus on the understanding that, I'm asking the board to approve a higher tax rate that I envision as being, when it comes time to. When the legislature is done, it'll be.
I make a motion to approve the local government property evaluation system for the public works.
A second. Carol got it.
Second is going to Carol,
Okay. Exactly.
because Brad said so. There's a motion and a second, please, further discussion. Okay, hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is J, board, to approve donation to the city. And we've talked about this before, but we need formal approval and paper trail to show that this is an official donation.
Yes, we had a public hearing for the donation of the tennis building and parts of the ball field. We had that public hearing last month, so this is just a procedural step to approve make it official. Obviously, the building's raised, and it's being stored, but to make it official that we donated for the city.
I'll make a motion that we donate the dugouts and the concession stand to the city.
So. You're fine.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Brad, seconded by Lily. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We're on item A, review and consider approval of Schedule B contracts for 26.7.
And this is just a change in how state law works. The Schedule B contracts, which are coaching contracts and so for sports and like sponsor contracts, they need to be approved annually, and that changed 6-7 years ago. So after the season's done, that provides us an opportunity. So tonight we can look at the fall coaches and the winter coaches. And there's actually a little kind of says in there what we're approving tonight, fine arts wise and clubs and activities. And then the spring coaches, we've got them listed, but we won't approve spring or summer coaches until the season's over. And what approving them does is then when we settle with the teachers, we're because we've got an approved contract for next year, then we can issue not only the teaching contract, but we can issue all these Schedule B, coaching and supervising contracts. Lots of times to our own employees, but sometimes to non-employees who wouldn't maybe understand, well, why did I get my contract in the mail?
So many people share their time with the Decorah School District. Yeah, it's just nice to, I don't know if I've seen all the names in the document before. Great. Shares their time this way.
It is incredible how many people
Let's just keep going.
I know it gets brought up often, or at least I bring it up. I know when Adam presented to the Lions Club, we had figure of all but 3 seniors that were graduating, or all but 3 students at the high school were involved in one activity.
Yeah, last year, our total enrollment in high school, our total number of students participated, the total number of participation was higher. What our actual enrollment was.
Oh,
But it's just, for me, it was a cool thing, and it was really impressive to just kind of make sure that our community knows that there's something for everybody. If you're not athletic, then there's a fine arts, or there's something that's maybe more intellectual. There's always speech, you can always do that. But art club, and we got the CTOs, and bowling. So there's just, not that bowling is athletic, but bowling always strikes me because we've got a great participation. And some of our bowlers, that's a group that doesn't do as many other activities as some of the groups. So.
Any questions about the positions of
Make a motion to approve, and schedule be recommended.
Awesome.
Okay, hearing a motion in a second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is item L, review and consider approval of the proposal to provide construction material testing and special inspection services for the new elementary school project.
So we need to hire a company to do our, I guess, so I would call it our soil testing, but our site testing. That has to be hired by us. It can't be part of the project. Patty, from Emergent did put together the bids and vet the two proposals. And we worked with, Chosen Valley, that was the lowest bid. We felt good about both bids, but we'd like to go with, Chosen Valley. They did make a point that the idea that the bid is if we do everything, and that's why it's $91,000. We hope that actual costs will be lower than that, but we can't say until we get done with the project. But the recommendation is to approve the agreement with Chosen Valley.
This is cost accounting for in the overall.
Yeah, it's one of those ones that's on a list of, it's a cost, it's like the asbestos abatement. There's a number for it, but it's not part of the guaranteed maximum price.
And it will come out of capital funds.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
And people that work for Myron have worked with this company.
Yes. They were excited that Chosen Valley. Like I said, I think both groups would be good.
I'll make a motion that we approve the contract with Chosen Valley for our soil boring.
Second.
Hearing a motion in a second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is item M, discussion of easements with the city for the new elementary school and moving the setting a new public hearing date for April 27th. So as Tim mentioned before, there was updated language that needed to be published for the public hearing. And we, Tim and I both attended the last city council meeting a week ago, where the council talked through the easements and documents have been attached here. Just to recap this is a really unique project, as we know. It has a city utility running under it. And we all along have talked with the city of Decorah about the storm sewer. And so I was excited to hear John Yelly articulate that the proposed engineering and new storm sewer project will be even more efficient and have a better flow rate than our current city storm sewer. And also there was great discussion from the council about the easements with 50-50 maintenance costs on the retaining wall. There, again, it felt like there's a lot of details, but all of the suggestions seem to be mutually beneficial to both parties and in partnership for a new school for our community. So we have that.
And the retaining wall, I thought the retaining wall discussion was interesting because there are other retaining walls in the city and we don't have agreements for that. So if the council was asking John, well, is it 50-50, on Broadway or by the hospital? And he's kind of said, well, we don't really have anything. So maybe we're setting a precedent here with the retaining wall. The council looked at, okay, if the retaining wall isn't there, we don't get to use Hively, but then the school doesn't, school has a problem. So that's where they proposal 50-50, which certainly made sense. The sanitary sewer behind the bank is a suggestion so that they have access to the sewer without putting it in the middle of the tennis courts. I thought that was a really good compromise.
Or putting it up on the street.
That made a lot of sense. And so so that was an easy one. the sidewalks utility that I think was kind of talked about and the water main. But to Cindy's point, I was pleased to hear John Yelly say that slightly better efficiency on the computer model. We are putting a bend in that stormwater, but because of the, instead of a corrugated, it's a smooth surface. So
It's
John's,
concrete, so it's.
yeah, so John's comment was slightly more efficient on the computer model, but more efficient nonetheless. So these are the easements. We do, so we do need to set the public hearing for, move it from April 20th to April 27th. I recommend we do that at noon, or whatever's convenient for the board members. We'll get it in the paper this Thursday. That'll give us 10 days. City council does have a special meeting on the night of the 27th that Travis said they could add, they could put the easements in at that time, which, so that we'll approve it at noon, they'll approve it that night, and construction permit could then be issued Tuesday, April 28th. In talking to Blake at Myron, he said that that would still work with their timeline, and that put them behind.
So that's the only action we're taking is setting the.
Exactly.
But I also want to give time if the board has questions with details around these easements.
We do have a site, just to clarify, we do have a site permit between now and then, so we are able to use some of this site work.
Right, in excavations for the treatment.
Seems like these are essential to moving forward, and so I'd make a motion that we set the public hearing date and approve these easements. At that.
At the public.
Yeah,
hearing.
we're just setting the public hearing.
Correct.
A second, okay, hearing a motion and a second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is item N, review and consider approval of the class of 2026 high school graduates, contingent on all graduates successfully meeting the graduation requirements.
So this is a pretty standard agenda item for April, and it's always like it says that we're approving a list, and it's contingent that they meet the requirements. So we have positive thoughts for the 141 children on this list. For some, it might be a little closer than others.
A list of future leaders and civic-minded people,
Absolutely.
workforce, yeah.
I'll make a motion that we approve the class of 2026 Decorah High School graduates, contingent upon them successfully meeting the graduation requirements.
Second. Okay, hearing a motion in a second, any other discussion?
Well, that one said 141, and the document says 140, so are we listening?
Oh, I meant to say that for the.
Okay. So I make sure we don't.
I'm gonna graduate. Good question. Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item O, review and consider approval of the fiscal year technology service contracts between Keystone AEA and the Decorah Community School District.
So this was one of our budget adjustments where we took general fund costs to pay our computer tech, and we turned it into a purchase service so we can use our capital funds. We then got this is an agreement with Keystone AEA to hire computer tech technicians and provide their services back to the district. Great news is we have two. One is retiring, but the other one that we like, Alex, got hired by the AA, so that's good. Sean was asked to participate in the interview, felt good about the other candidate. They had maybe 3 or 4, so nice pool. So we're really excited about the staff that will be part of this. We're happy for the staff that they get to stay in IPERS related employment. And then the savings to general fund is right around $150,000. I did update the number of what it will cost our couple, but when we were paying the 2 employees last year, all in with not fees, salary and with FICA and IPERS and everything was right about 150.
And
So,
we're supporting the ADM.
and we're supporting the AA.
So win-win-win.
Yeah,
Win-win.
yeah, very excited that this all came together and if you've been paying attention, we did try to do this a few years ago and this wasn't the right time with the AA, but times changed and we're thrilled that we're doing it now. And it's obviously we can sell the budget and we're getting less $222,000. It's a really good time to do general fund costs.
For 2 quality employees, so.
Yeah.
Motion to approve the fiscal 27 energy services contracts. These two.
I'll second.
Okay, hearing a motion in a second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Gonna find that.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And after our marathon meeting, we're finally on the last item.
It's only gonna take them 35 minutes.
What's the record? I'm just gonna link the superintendent's report. I don't know what is going on. Thought it was there, so.
It's on the one that you emailed us, on the attachment, it is on the.
Okay,
No, never mind, it doesn't.
well, I just put it on this one, so. I talked about how we hired the AEA. AEA has hired the tech staff, so we're excited. Update on the calendar. Link to the elementary updates is always available. That website is Decorah-elementary school, Decorah-elementary Decorah.school. That's a nice redundant email or link. You can find that on our website. I did update our budget adjustments. We had been at, we had initially started at 472,000, but with some attrition, notably a staff member retiring and a bus route, we think our budget adjustments or budget savings is about $600,568. So if I remember, our goal was 650. So we're got a good start on that goal.
Yeah, and that was for 2 years.
That was for 2 years, and of course, we're gonna watch what we get for SSA next year. Well, we're gonna watch, first thing we're gonna watch for is enrollment next October, and then we'll watch what we get for SSA and understand, you never feel super comfortable about your budget, but we're making adjustments as we go so that hopefully we can avoid having one of those big, huge cut years that you read about in the paper or you see about it. So.
You're doing this much thanks to all of the admin staff with minimal impact on students. Yes, staff.
And that's a really good point, and we know that we've done a lot of things to avoid reducing teaching staff, and we hope to continue that, but we know the reality is that that might be something we have to look at in future years. So, yeah, and then there's just a link to the new money and a little graph. Probably what I would add to the new money is one of the big things we're feeling the effect of this year is the drop we had last year. Because last year when we dropped, we were the budget guarantee amount was $11,585,000. But the state did say, oh, we're not going to drop you because we're going to promise you 101% of the year before. So they actually gave us $11,944,000. So our budget guarantee last year was $338,000. That reflected that big drop of students. Of which, I think 49.5 were the Northern County, the ending of the agreement with Maple Canyon, which that was flowed through money, but just understand that money went away. So we did have a larger budget guarantee this year, or last year. And so when you take the 11,585,000, that's what we should have gotten last year. That's what we're getting 101% of this year. And so next year, the number is 11,634,000, and we'll get, depending on enrollment, depending on SSA, but the minimal amount we'll get a year from now will be 11,750,000. So we know that we're going out to new money next year by $49,000. That's before SSA, before, so I think that's, obviously we'd like that number to go up a lot more than 49,000, but it's at least possible. So, yeah.
Any questions for Dr. Jones? Thanks for your time and energy to everyone. I'll call the meeting adjourned.